Just wanted to kick it off first. Thank you everybody for joining our April meetup. If this is your first one, this is a regular occurrence. We do this once a month. It's usually the third or fourth Wednesday of every month. We get together, we talk about real estate related topics, give a bit of an update as to what's happening in the market here in Toronto, dive into a case study or two. But this is really a once a month gathering place for all things real estate. Next slide, please. So who are we exactly? We have our mission statement, and that is to help people navigate the complex world of real estate and be the team who has their back. When we were first real estate investors, we kind of wish we had ourselves. We didn't have anybody to guide us through the process, and we spent a lot of time kind of learning through error. And that's not always the best way to go through things, especially when real estate investing can be so complex and expensive. So that's what we try to do. We try to help navigate everything from the financing through to the procurement of your investable asset, to management, to deposition. We try to walk through the whole process with you guys. And we act as a complete solution provider. So everything you need to be able to be successful in real estate, we help provide that. And the last thing is we figure it out. So research is all well and good, but actually turning it into an executable business strategy is really what matters. It's nice to hear like, oh, sales prices are at an all-time high, but what do you do with that, right? Like, and that's where we come in, is turning the data, the research, and synthesizing it into a solution. And these are kind of some of our credentials. They're, Matt and I always like to say, this is not to impress you, but to impress upon you that we do know what we're doing. We've been investing in real estate for many years. Personally, everybody on the Volition team is a real estate investor. So we all have investment background. We've won a bunch of awards as a result, and we've helped a lot of people. We've invested a lot of money for our clients in real estate and help them change their lives through real estate investing. So what does Volition do? I'm always asked this question. And I probably want to update this to make it a little simpler, because I got asked this question again just recently. But basically, we have these four major areas. The first one is advisory, and that's really education. That's like what this is tonight, helping people learn about real estate, teaching them about real estate investing. That's the advisory piece. And also the one-on-one coaching that we provide to our clients to help get their make their real estate dreams come true, execute against their real estate investment strategies. The next thing is the realty side, and that's the procurement of the asset. So once you've figured out what the path it is you want to take, how do you actually buy that asset to that fits your business model or your business case that you're trying to execute on. And this is not just simply buying a house. If you want to do, I don't know, a legal basement suite, do you have the right side setbacks, and do you have the correct access or an egress for that basement suite? Could you possibly turn this into a laneway home? Just because it has a laneway at the back doesn't mean you can. So oftentimes the procurement of the right asset is in itself quite a complicated process. Next thing is renovations. If you wanted to build a laneway suite, for example, how do you do that? Well, we can help you. We have a full construction strategy, design, and execution part of our renovations business. So we can take it from concept to reality. And the last thing is management. You need help leasing up that property. Once you've done the beautiful renovations, we can take care of that for you as well. And this is our little Volition team here. So yeah, next slide. And to go in line with our mission, this is our vision picture, as it were, to go along with our vision statement. We really try to be this eraser in your life to help get through that maze, because there's so many questions, there's so much variability, and every maze is different. Every investor is going to come across a different set of challenges. So we try to look at your unique situation and help you navigate that process. Just a reminder for all our Volition clients. So those who have, signed up with us with advisory, we have our private mastermind chat group. If for whatever reason we've missed you, I'm very sorry. Please let me know, and we will add you onto the chat group. Cool, and into my market next. So this is a shockingly large bar, right? And I remember seeing the numbers ahead of the publication of the charts, and I was quite astounded to see such high sales volume. And then I was talking about it earlier today with Matt. It's like, so what? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to have high sales volumes? And I said, well, it means there's a lot of sales transactions in Toronto. And he's like, no. Like, what does it actually mean for us as an investor or for us in the future? I said, oh, that's a good question. What it means is when we start looking at it in tandem with other metrics or other numbers. So if you go to the next slide.
If you want a more accurate reflection of how the conversation went, it was more like, Ming, I tune out every single time you present this slide. So why don't you give a little more context? And I was telling him, like, people think in like models. They think there's something that they can actually tangibly relate to. So like, what is it that this is? If we're going to synthesize this into something meaningful, what is that one thing? So that's what Ming is getting to now.
Yeah, and I didn't have, because that conversation just happened a couple of hours ago, I didn't have time to create a slide around that. But where these metrics matter is when we start tying things together. So, the first thing that we have is the sales volume. The second thing that we have here is the average price. Okay, so when we look at this, we see a massive increase in sales volume. Okay, so a lot more transactions are happening. Let's keep that in the back burner. Second thing now is we see an increase in sales price. And while there is an increase in sales price, it isn't as drastic as sales volume. Okay, so it is proportional, less, but is proportional along with the sales volumes increases. Okay, another data point. Let's go on to the next slide. New listings. Okay, there's a ton of new listings. Okay, so now I've got three interesting data points. Lots of new listings, lots of sales, and increased home price. What does that actually tell me? Okay, so if I had tons of sales volume, low new listings, and increased sale prices, that tells me that one of the hypotheses around this is that increases in sales price are actually due to reduced supply, right? Because if I don't have many listings on the market, but my sales volume is going up and my sale price is going up, that means that the demand side is high, and that's what's driving the market, right? And it's primarily a demand-driven market. That's not what I have here. I've got high sales volume, and I've got high new listings, and I also have an increase in sales price. So which means I have high demand, high volume, high supply, and still an increase in sales price. So I have perhaps still a demand that's outstripping supply, but not a massive difference. And if we go to the next slide, which is the sales to listing ratio, that actually shows us our comparison. So if you look, the sales to listings is actually down slightly. So the current sales volume and increase in sales prices is not being driven as heavily by supply and demand fundamentals. I would say that we have some external influences happening right now. A couple of things. We've got, I want to zero in on the word influencers, not fundamentals. As Matt and I always talk about, there's kind of two sets of things. There's an influencer set, which is things that have maybe a temporary impact in the market, and then there's fundamentals, which are the fundamentals. They fundamentally drive what's happening in the market. So if I see movement that's outside of this supply-demand fundamentals, I can say, okay, maybe it's influencers. And what are those right now? Big one, obviously, is interest rates. So you have interest rates, and then to a lesser extent, people with a lot more disposable income available right now. And that's manifesting itself in a whole bunch of things because people aren't traveling. People are spending more money at home. So home renovation has gone through the roof as people have that extra cash. And there's been stabilization in jobs that happened. If you haven't lost your job at this point because of COVID, the industry that you're in is likely more stable. So that there's more confidence within, more consumer confidence within their respective job categories. So those kind of influencers are what we're seeing. That's my hypothesis, at least. This is what we're seeing drive the changes we're seeing in the market versus, hey, there's a lot of demand or not much supply or vice versa, because the numbers are showing that we have plenty of supply actually. And if you're an active client with us right now, we actually have stuff to see, which is kind of rare. So there is plenty of supply, but there's also kind of matching demand against that. And still we're having some increases in pricing. Any questions about that? I don't know if that was what you wanted to hear, Matt, if that was more interesting, if you didn't fall asleep or.
I'm still asleep. But no, like at least it's putting it in a little more context. I think what we'll do for the next time is actually summarize like the different things, like the different aspects, like sales to listing ratios, and seeing how they all kind of play together to produce an outcome. And because that outcome is really going to be, we don't have a crystal ball, but that outcome is going to give us at least an educated guess or some confidence as to where things are going to continue to go.
Right? Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. It's an educated guess. Obviously, economics are not as trite and simple as, hey, I see a couple of numbers and I know exactly what's happening with the overall economic impact of real estate and the economy. But it does give us some insight into what's happening.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go on to the next slide then.
And maybe you're going to touch on this later, but you did talk about interest rates and mortgage qualification rules, stress tests. Is that something that you get into a bit later?
I wasn't, but it is a good point. There is a bit of FOMO right now. So what's happening is, I'm sure a lot of folks know, the stress test is, well, let me back up. There's something called the stress test, if you're not aware. It's a mortgage stress test. And basically, as you qualify for a mortgage, it is a artificial rate by which you're being qualified against to make sure that if rates were to rise up to that point, you'd still be able to pay your mortgage. And that rate is increasing. It's not increasing significantly, but it is increasing to the point where some people may feel some pressure to execute sooner because they may be losing, 25 to 50 to maybe even 75,000 of mortgage qualification, and that may make it, that may make a material impact to their property purchase if they're purchasing at the very top of their budget, right? So there are a set of people who have all these pre-qualifications that are expiring that are under current stress test rules that if they don't buy, then they're going to have to qualify under the new stress test, which means their buying power is reduced.
So what's the qualification restrictions right now? Like if you have an offer accepted by a certain date, like we are hearing some rumblings from some of our lender partners, right?
Yeah, so I would say it varies bank to bank, but in general, it's the offer acceptance. I think it's June 1st. If Florence is on the line, she can confirm. I think it was June 1st is the cutoff, May 31st. There you go. I was off by one day. So May 31st, like you have to have your offer accepted by May 31st to have your, thanks guys, to have your current pre-qualification honored under the current stress test. And after that date, you would have to fall under the new stress test rules. And don't quote me on this. I'm sure somebody in the chat or one of our clients knows. I think it's the current is like 4.79. It's going up to 5 point something, very like low fives, which is effectively, anywhere between like 30,000, 4.25. There you go. And that's effectively like 25 to 75, depending on how much you're qualifying for the average.
Yeah. So that's a date to keep in mind if you're actively acquiring right now, because this could have a material impact on you. Just make sure you're in good contact, close contact with your mortgage broker or your mortgage professional, and just make sure that you're working towards that date if that's the date that if that's going to have an effect on you.
And this may not make any difference if you're not shopping to the maximum of your mortgage qualification. But it absolutely could be a deal breaker if you're right at the top, right? Like $50,000 is enough to make sure that you may not qualify for something that you thought you previously qualified.
Or, if you are on the cusp, just make sure you have that extra cash laying around so that you can close if you need to, right? Cool. Okay.
Cool. Let's keep going. So we, generalities of sales and what's happening in Toronto, always interesting. What we love to do at Volition is dive down another level of granularity. So what we actually do is track what's happening at a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. We follow the MLS, the TREB neighborhood codes. So we've broken down our data by TREB neighborhood codes. So go to the next slide. This is what's happening in downtown. So this information takes us from early, I think it's January 2017 till March 2021. And you'll see that, if you've been a client with us through this time, you would have felt it too. There was a bit of a slowdown through November and December. Properties were sitting on the market for a little while. They were getting harder to sell, but the second January hit, kind of that second week of January, the market just exploded. And through February and March were probably our most competitive months that we were seeing at the time. I was involved in a bidding war of over 50 bids on a property. Like, it was just insane. And what I would say now, though, so this is interesting because this is backwards looking. Forwards looking, in the last, I'd say 2 weeks, I don't know if Ed was able to make it on today. I know he's been feeling a little under the weather, but in about the last 2 weeks, the market has, I don't want to use the word cooled, but it is not at that same sort of pressure. It has definitely been cooling off. So instead of seeing 50 bids or 20 bids, it's more like 3 to 5 on offer, maybe 10 if it's a really special place. And I should qualify that further by saying that turnkey properties are still what is really driving crazy bidding wars right now. That's partially because it's really hard to create a turnkey property right now. Like, it is hard to get a good contractor. It's hard to get materials. It's actually hard to execute on construction in general. So there's a premium, and that's being shown in bidding wars for fully turnkey properties right now. So if you're like one of our clients that's looking for a regular home, and surprise, surprise, we actually do a lot of regular home business. Beautiful renovated turnkey properties are the ones that are really having tons of bidding wars. The properties that need a lot of work are the ones that are a little less competitive, or what I'd call the in-betweeners. So not nice enough to be a turnkey single family, not ghetto enough to attract a renovator, a contractor. Those ones are not getting tons of bids, maybe 3 or 4 off the night. So normal Toronto, I would say at that point.
How was there a moratorium or on permits?
There hasn't been a great question. There hasn't been a moratorium on permits, and there hasn't been a moratorium on construction, except new construction is not allowed to be started. So what does that mean exactly? Like, with the lockdown and the third wave, we have a construction division, and I've been asked this question. So the language is not very precise. Basically says if you've already started a project, you can continue it. If it is residential construction, I'm speaking strictly to residential construction. That doesn't it doesn't get down to the level of specificity saying that I have to have a permit and that means my project's already in flight. And permits are still being issued. The permit office is still open. So it's a bit of a weird rule because it's basically the honor system right now. And I can say I've already started a project and I need my permits for it. There's no, I don't think they're asking for any evidence to show that you've started a project. And the permit office continues to issue building permits. So yeah, that's the language of the stop work order. Now, ethically, what we've done is we're not taking on new business at this point. So if you came to us and said, okay, I want to renovate my basement now, we'll talk to you guys about it, but we're not going to start the construction or any sort of that work at this point, right? Yeah. So that's how that's affected us.
On the COA front, so if you have a project that has to go to COA because of a minor variance, there is more of a delay though. I think that delay normally was about a 4-month lead time to get a COA date. We're hearing that's about 6 months now. So just plan accordingly.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. COA was majorly backlogged already because it was shut down for a period of time last year, and they haven't been clear through that backlog. Plus, construction projects have increased in the city, so COA is even more overloaded now. So yeah, 6 months is sounds about right.
Yep. Okay, so sorry, that was single family detached. Are you moving on now?
Yep. Next one is condos. So obviously, same story with condos. Since January, February, the market is absolutely rebounded. I remember I was talking with a client in December of last year, and I was saying to them, like, we're seeing early indications that the condo market's going to start bouncing back. Don't put your, like, if you don't need to sell now, don't sell now. Wait until spring of next year, and you're going to hit a fantastic condo market. And it has been just nuts. Like, I have 2 clients who are end users, just try to find a condo to live in. And the competition that we've seen in condos has been worse than the competition we've seen on single family homes. We're still seeing, 10 to 15 offers on offer night. It has been a little nuts. Now, it has cooled down a little bit, but certain pockets of the city, like Liberty Village, are still crazy on offer night. And at one point, I was watching the prices of these condos going up 10 to 15,000 a week. As it was, I'd say quickly correcting itself to pre-COVID times. Now, if you look at the data here, it's not quite back up to pre-COVID highs, but it's getting very close. And I can almost guarantee when the April numbers come in, we'll have taken another big jump up.
Yeah. So the important thing to note here is that we're getting a perspective of boots on the ground because we are active investor realtors helping clients actually buy these things. So we're seeing this boots on the ground. We're also seeing this through, and also this data that we're showing you is better data than you're going to get anywhere else. And the reason it's better than anywhere else is because of where it comes from. This is not average sale price. And I know we talk about this every time, so I'll go over it again very quickly. Average sale price means nothing because if I stick my head in the oven and I stick my feet in the freezer, on average, my body's at a great temperature. But we all know that that's not the case, right? And similarly, if average sale price in Toronto, whatever the hell that means, if you have a bunch of high-end Rosedale or Bridle Path homes sell and not very many one-bedroom condos sell, does that mean the average price of Toronto went up? No, it doesn't mean anything, right? So the important thing is that you're tracking assets like for like. And so what we track is using the home price index, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story, detached home as an example. And we're tracking that and seeing how that tracks over time. Similarly, we can also track it for semi-detached, we can track it for townhouse, we can track it for condos, we can track it for every type of asset, and we can track it on a per area basis. So if you can see my cursor, we actually narrow in. This is why we separated the data, because Toronto as a whole, that means nothing. Toronto as a whole would technically include like Richmond Hill, and Aurora, which move very, very differently than downtown Toronto. So just keep that in mind. We're showing you better data than you're going to get anywhere else. Okay. Condos, everywhere else. Oh,
yeah, everywhere else.
I got ahead of myself there.
Great segue there, Matt. So if we go to the next slide, looking at everywhere else, we'll see that kind of finally we're seeing recovery in the rest of the market. So we're still not up to the early 2017 highs in some neighborhoods. But those
where are these neighborhoods? CO7, C14.
Yeah, CO7, CO14. That's North York. So CO7 is, I think, the east side of Yonge, yeah. And C14 is the west side of Yonge, north of Shepherd. So yeah, I mean, those haven't recovered. 2017 was a little nuts for that neighborhood because there was a lot of rebuilds and people were paying extraordinary prices just for a 50-foot lot so they could tear it down and put on a monster McMansion. You know, that still continues today, but there's not as big of a premium on the lots now. Partially because construction prices are through the roof, so they're not getting the same sort of margins that they were in 2017. But you see a number of neighborhoods like what we have here, like Aurora and some of these other smaller towns. They're actually starting to recover back to those prices now. But you see, it's much slower recovery and much different curve from what we see in the downtown core.
Yep. All right. So who do we got here? Do we got here? I'm just gonna.
I'm on. Yeah.
Okay, Arthur.
That place.
Yeah.
I've been there before.
You've been there before? Here, I'm gonna. Can I spotlight you, Arthur?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I just spotlighted you. So let me give a quick preamble here. So we're going to get into a case study. And what we've never done before is let anyone else speak other than us about their own case study, that is. Of course, we have guest speakers all the time, but we normally present, for whatever reason, never really thought about it before, we take our clients' properties, we do a case study around something that they might have purchased and what they did and what the outcome sort of looked like. But I had this inkling of, hey, why don't we let Arthur speak? Arthur bought this sixplex a number of years ago, 4.5 years ago, I think, to be exact. And so we wanted to highlight this because we thought it was an interesting case study. And then a couple of days ago, I just had the idea, hey, Arthur, why don't you present this yourself? So I'm going to just let Arthur take it away. And can you see Arthur? Did I spotlight? Yeah, I think I spotlighted you. So hopefully we can see Arthur.
I can't tell.
Can't tell?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay.
I can see everybody else, so I don't know if the slides are on or I'm on or both or whatever, but.
Okay, so let's just assume we can see Arthur.
Yeah, someone else will have to confirm with you.
Good stuff. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to let you take it away, and then maybe we can just, I'll fill in the gaps from what I remember about the situation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If there's anything particular you want me to speak of as I'm going through it, just don't be afraid to jump in and add whatever you think adds value. So anyway, like Matt was saying, this is a sixplex that I bought in November 2016. I was one of Volition's very first clients, actually. So it's good to see this used as a case study because it actually shows what can happen in just a few short years. But anyway, so my story, just to give a little bit of context, is after joining the workforce after university, I purchased a duplex because I had to buy something eventually. I lived in the top floor. I rented out the basement. It helped me with some of the bills and whatnot. I'm actually still living in it right now. And after about 5 years in there and the price doubling, I saw the immense potential and power of real estate investing. So I decided to kind of leverage what I already had. And before doing that, I wanted to learn as much as possible. So part of that learning strategy was to attend as many meetup groups as I could in the GTA, which actually led me to meeting Matt and his crew. At that time, there was only, I think, there was like 7 of us in a room, maybe.
Yeah, it totally was.
It was amazing. But
we've grown a little bit since then.
Yeah, quite a bit.
In this room, but there was 7 of us. I remember it was pretty pathetic.
Yeah, no. I mean, great things start from small beginnings, right? It was, and it really was that type of story. It was something else. Matt was very charismatic, but very, very well spoken. Knew exactly what he was talking about. So over the next few weeks, I kind of refined exactly which meetup groups that I wanted to kind of focus in, and eventually it was basically his meetup group. And within the next 6 to 8 months, the group got quite a bit bigger. I learned a lot and made a lot of good connections. It was a lot of good people that was just naturally attracted to the group. And so yeah, it was about 6 to 8 months later, I attended one of Matt's Street Smart tours, and my
It was our
goal.
very first Street Smart tour.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah,
but,
it was.
Yeah, talk about pulling the trigger fast. It's usually not like me, but I felt pretty confident. So my goal was to just more or less get a triplex or start with a couple duplex around the GTA, and I was eventually saw a goal of having a multiplex in Toronto proper. That was going to be my flagship property. So this was kind of way out of my league when we went through it. But I mean, it's still good to have stretch goals and just to kind of see things. So we went through it, and Matt kind of actually approached me afterwards, and he said, you know, I could see you were really interested in this one property. I said, yeah, I was. That's what I'm aiming for eventually. You know what I mean? If I could get something in Toronto property of that size, that would be fantastic. That would be quite the feather in the cap type thing. And so he said, well, why don't we talk about it for a bit? And I said, okay, sure. I mean, whatever. And after we discussed it a bit, he went over the numbers and this and that. And I had to leverage myself quite a bit if I was going to pull it off. But eventually I became comfortable with it. And I actually pulled the trigger. And I thought, you know what? It was the only thing I didn't recognize was the timing. It was like that's what I wanted to do eventually. But then I thought about it. I'm like, well, it's staring me right in the face right now. Like I could actually pull this off now if I really want to. So why not get it done in a slightly different order? And I eventually did it, bought it. And it turned out to be the best investment decision I've ever made in my life to date, which is great. So just to get into it a little bit, that's just the kind of like backstory. But just to get into it further now, when I purchased it, there was 3 vacant units based on my the amount of capital I had to play with and stuff like that. I could only renovate 2, so I wanted to rent out 1 as quickly as possible. Did that, 4 of them rented. 2 of them though I attacked. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you.
Can I just fill in a few other gaps?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember this like it was yesterday. This is our very first Street Smart tour. It was supposed to be about education. This was not about selling. This was just showing you what was out there. Good, you know, we had pre-vetted a couple of different options. There's also bad options. So I think we went through a few properties and we pointed out why you shouldn't buy those. And then when we came across this one, I was like, this one is a unicorn, right? Someone like, not that I was trying to sell it, but I was like, someone should jump on this. Like this thing is primo. Like it's because with the training that we've had as investor realtors, we can see what most others can't. We can see value where others can't. We can see potential where others can't. And I saw this and I was like, wow, like this is something special. And hopefully you can see it too. So, you know, Arthur did see it. And so, you know, kudos to Arthur, because I can't stress enough how big of a jump this was. And I'm going to show you some of the numbers in the financials, but like this was a huge leap of faith. And, you know, certainly you're going to do your analytics, but what you don't want to get stopped you don't want to get into the analysis paralysis. And, you know, Arthur, super smart guy. He's an engineer. He, like me, like every other engineer, is going to analyze stuff to death. But at a certain point in time, you have to shoot the puck. And that's why I was so impressed and so happy that Arthur recognized the value in this, even though it was stretching himself beyond what he felt, you know, with the comfort zone. And we'll see where that has led to in terms of outcomes. A couple of other things, since it was more money than he initially was planning for, in order to get to that, you had to refinance what?
I had to refinance my house, which I was kind of planning on doing anyway, but because this was such a, like Matt said, a unicorn, and I kind of considered it as such, but after speaking with Matt, he told me a couple of other potentials that I didn't even see, and then it made it even more, you know, beneficial. So I thought, oh man, if I can make this work. Eventually I switched my mindset completely, where it was like, if I can physically make this work, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at this if I can physically get this done. So to answer your question, I actually had to refinance even my mom's house to get more capital to put into this, and then do some funny maneuvering with unsecured lines of credit and just get as much credit. I didn't even realize you could do that. Like, it was amazing how much I had to put together in order to get this done. But yeah, so that's to answer your question. I had to really stretch myself thinner than I thought I would be allowed to do, actually, in order to get this done.
It's funny. Here, and there's right there is where we were standing when some
this is a funny story. Yeah,
some douche walks up to us and he's like, "Hey, you know, what are you guys doing here?" We're like, "Oh, we're just on a street smart store. We're just like looking at different properties." He's like, "Here, I'm gonna give you a tip. I'm gonna save you a lot of money. Go directly to the seller agent and you can negotiate directly. Boom, I saved you, I just made you 20 grand. And I was like, yeah, certainly you could do that. And meanwhile, you know, I think just to put it in context, a lot of the, you know, I think our meetup group has grown in sophistication over the years. And certainly, you know, some people have reached certain levels of sophistication where they're able to handle things on their own. At this point, this was not the case for the group of individuals that we were taking through. And he's like, "Oh, you listen to me. I own 3 properties, and look at that big truck down there. I own that big truck." And we were just like, "Oh my God!" And I think I saw Jason DeCourcy jump on this call too. And I know he hasn't jumped on one in a while, but I remember that he was there, and I'm pretty sure he called him a wanker or a twit or something to that effect.
Yeah, that's when I remember that, because I remember, like, I like this guy. That was pretty funny, because it was basically when he mentioned his truck, that's when I just that's when I died.
That was like, okay, you've lost all credibility.
That's my truck.
Somehow big truck, that was supposed to be what was gonna, you know, win me over. Anyway,
it's ridiculous.
Let's show you some pictures of what this place looked like.
Okay, yeah. So this is the one unit that was mainly renovated, and I apologize for the pictures because they always had tenants in them, and these pictures were just kind of like scrounged up from like appraisal pictures and then before pictures before I even bought the place and such and so forth. So on the right here, that's actually the before. So this is the living room kitchen of a very small unit on the top floor of the property, where you can see as compared to the left picture, the uppers, the cabinets were installed. We had to actually shift over the exhaust above the oven there, and we put in the backsplash, we put in pot lights, and a couple of other things around there, some painting. We moved some of the outlets and stuff so that it was more feng shui. And then if you go to the next picture, that's going to be, so this is the bathroom. I wish I had more pictures because it would show more of a comprehensive view of all the renovations that took place, because in this bathroom, everything was ripped right to the studs, redid the plumbing, redid everything. The brand new toilet, new positioning so that it was more functional, new vanity, new everything. But at least we got this shot here. This shows on the left here, you got an old bathtub. I wish the angle of the camera, the shot was a bit lower, because you could see all like the rust and just how this place was run down. And then you switch it over and you've got a walk-in glass door shower. Very nice shower fixture there, and the tiling and whatnot. It really made this bathroom really made this unit pop. So between this and the renovation that I'm going to show you next in the other unit, it was about $40,000. And then I'll tell you exactly what all the benefits were that pound per pound afterwards. But anyway, so this is the next unit. So this is in the main floor. The picture on the left shows the living room, and then there's that cutout in the wall there, which leads to the dining room. And the picture on the right is the opposite picture, right? It's from the dining room's perspective, looking towards the living room. Yeah, so right there where he's putting in the living room there, we decided, actually, I shouldn't even say we decided, this was actually all Matt here. He said, you know what? He said, value for money. This was one of the reasons why I was telling you that I ended up buying it. Yeah, so he closed in that there. And we ripped out the fireplace. Funny story about that if we have time later. But anyway, we ripped out the fireplace, and that whole area, that whole living room, is what we decided to turn into a 3rd bedroom and ensuite bathroom. So, now you got, that's an amazing equity lift pound for pound, because this was roughly $20,000 to do, maybe just under. And the equity lift is as far as the rental increase, and then therefore the corresponding cap rate and hence equity lift.
So this was a this was a what before? How many bedroom, how many bath? And
so this one here was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 1 bath in the back. And from this renovation here, we turned it into a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, which is very, that's something special. I mean, it's rare to have. And because of the size of this, so this unit here is the whole footprint of the house. You saw the picture, the original picture of how big the house was. This one, there's, to give you some kind of comparison, the top floor has 3 units, 3 separate units, and a hallway between them with 3 doors. So you've got 3 separate living quarters with 3 separate kitchens, 3 separate and that's all in this same footprint in the main floor. So this is a huge unit.
This was, if I recall correctly, about 1,200 square feet, correct?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
This is a massive unit.
It was
all
really
on one level too. Normally, in order to get that kind of size, it's normally over 2 levels, like a second and third floor. But this was all one level. The size of this, and footprint of the property, the lot and the property was it was very special. It was very large.
Right. And there's actually, with this one here, like Matt was saying, it's because it was on the main floor, there's actually the front door to the place, and there's actually a back door to go to the other side. So another option we could have had is just split it right down the middle there and actually turned it into 2 separate units. Yeah. You know what I mean? But we decided to go this route because the other thing too is I was running out of money. I mean, this is my first event. It was crazy. It was crazy. At the end of this one, I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have to get a second job. But it didn't work out that way. It worked out really, really well. So this is the aftermath right here. So this is what that living room turned into. This is the bedroom portion, so the part closest to the front of the house. So there's a 2-shot, and you can see beside the bed there on the left where that end table is. That's kind of where the fireplace used to be. And then if you go to the next picture, you're going to see kind of the bathroom now. So that's the bathroom. That's kind of facing that opening in between the living room and the dining room in the previous pictures. So this was a brand new bathroom, very similar to the other unit. You can see it's very cookie cutter, right? But it's got a lot of pop, and it's very, very good. Yeah, you can see like right where the TV is there. That's kind of where the bathroom is, right? Yeah. So right up against that wall, new wall.
The important thing here is that we recognized collaboratively, we recognized that our tenant profile doesn't require a dining room. So when we were looking for opportunities and we're looking with new eyes at the same thing, we can see possibilities. So that's the key concept here, and especially in Toronto real estate. Toronto real estate is not like everywhere else. Everywhere else, it's easier. To be quite frank, it's a little bit easier in these other small towns because prices are lower. There's a lot more properties that actually work. As you know, in Toronto, with big price lifts and everything like that, and the type of competition that we're up against, you have to be able to see with new eyes. So, okay, cool, very good. And you ready to talk about the financials now?
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, okay. So the purchase price was 1.5 million, which was like being my first standalone investment property was just. That's probably why you can see that it was daunting at the beginning. I thought, well, this is great for education, but I'm going to go get something smaller at first and build up to this. So anyway, it was 1.5 million, which took all the money in my whole family more or less to get at this thing. And you can see the rents there about just over 7,000. The initial down payment, I should say too, I ended up getting residential financing. However, because it was such a monstrous building and my situation and whatnot, and it was more than four units. Typically, financial institutions after 4 units will look at it as a commercial multiplex. So they'll kind of rope you into commercial financing. I was able to get out of that, which was great. Again, with the help of the Volition team. But there was still some of the loopholes of commercial financing that I had to that I was subject to. So, and some of those were the 25% down payment. So that's why you can see the initial investment, which was really, really huge. I had to get commercial insurance, which was a little bit higher. They made me do a 5-year fixed. There was no other option to do variable and whatnot, which was unfortunate. And also the interest rate was a little bit higher. So, I mean, I was kind of fixed into that, but which is unfortunate, but all things considered, it's a small price to pay for such a great opportunity. And you can see, we're going to get to that in a minute here as how things actually evolved over the last few years. So like I said, it was about $40,000 you can see there for the reno. That took about 2 months. So lost, monthly rate in 2 units for 2 months, not that big of a deal. And then the after rents were almost 7,500 there, which is about a $350 increase, which might not sound a lot. So I wanted to kind of hit on that point too. You put $40,000 in, you've increased the rents by $350. It sounds like almost like intuitively, it might not sound like an intelligent thing to do. But when you take $350 and you compare that to the mortgage, the corresponding amount of mortgage that you can get for $350, it's well above $40,000. It's more than double that. It might even be close to triple. I don't know, like depending on your rates and whatnot. What would you think that would be, Matt? Break down like $350 a month.
I was going to chime in there. Is like actually whenever you do the math on should you do a reno, is that going to give you a corresponding rent lift? It's almost never, like it never works out, because it's not like you can say, oh, I'm going to have an extra $300 and I'm going to take that times 12 and amortize it over a certain amount of years, and therefore it's going to make up the cost of the reno. It doesn't work out that way. Where it really manifests itself is going to be on a very big number later when we see it in terms of the value of the property. That's a big one. And then as you hold the property, it's going to be your tenant profile. Right. If you've got a crappy, crummy place, you're going to attract a crappy, crummy tenant profile. What do you expect? If a beautiful property, you'll get a higher quality tenant profile. Yeah. And that means running your business for a longer period of time is more likely and more sustainable. So those are the big reasons. Like that's kind of like number one. Number two for me to do renovations on a property is value of the actual property, so the ARV, and tenant profiles, and then kind of later is the improved cash flow. Yeah. So that's just my.
That's good points. But I mean, look where we kind of, this was initial starting point A, and then this is now where we are. Oh, sorry, because this is initial starting point A, this is B, and now this is today. This is 4.5 years later. Yeah. So this is the point, right? Like this. This outpaced, and it's partly because we actually saw that these rents were artificially suppressed with people who had been like living there. So upon turnover, like this far exceeds even market. But the reason it exceeds market is because the starting point was artificially lower. But like, look at this, look at this amount of cash flow.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point, Matt, is because there's still a couple people in there that have been in there since before I even owned it. Like there's people that have been in there for about 10 years now. So in a sense, it's still artificially low. There's one unit that they're paying at $500-600 under market value easily for one unit. So I mean, it's still kind of suppressed, even this number here.
But yeah. No, this is fantastic. Just in the interest of trying to keep things moving along. So we're so fast forward to today, or not today, maybe a couple of weeks ago. What did you do?
Oh, it's amazing. So I decided to get it appraised as part of a refinance, because I was talking to Matt and just trying to get the next feather in my cap, so to speak. So part of that is to get it appraised, and it was appraised by the bank. It wasn't like I went and got an appraiser, because it's part of a refinance. So typically when you get it appraised by someone from the bank, they appraise it conservatively low, because it's, they're trying to protect themselves. So even having that said, starting at 1.5 million, 4.5 years later, this was the final.
Drum roll, please.
Yeah, this is something wildly beyond my expectation. Yeah, 2.25 million. So that means it went up
$750,000 in 4.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one thing to point out is that that's an appraised value. That's not market value.
Right.
You know that market value is going to be higher than appraised value. Typically appraisals are below market. Yeah. So if you were to put this on the market itself right now, do we do any cap rate analysis on this?
On on the acquisition cap. I removed it from here because there's too much.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it was an acquisition
I'm sure
cap.
we
Was
could
5.
exceed that price on sale though. Like
Yeah.
the actual market value of this place is actually higher.
Yeah.
For sure. So a 2.25, I did some back calculations. It is a 9.5% compounded growth over the course of 4.5 years, which is fantastic. I'd love to say this is exceptional. It is exceptional. The Toronto market on average, depending on which year, kind of ebbs and flows between about 7 and 10%. So we're very much at the higher end. But like, just to give you an idea of what 10% means, that means a doubling period of 7 years. So like we're very much on track there, and so that's amazing. So this is an increase in Arthur's net worth of $750,000 in 4.5 years. And
that's just the appreciation, because it was
that's
also
just appreciation. I actually have the rest of the ROI down below.
Right.
Do you mind if I just run through this quickly so we can get to the other part?
Go ahead.
So current mortgage, he's been paying it down from like 1 point something down to 9.995. Of the appraised value, it's only 44%. So he refied and got it up to 67.3%. Best case scenario would be 80%, but of course, you've got qualification limits. So he got up to 1.5, over 1.5. Equity takeout is 520 minus paying off some lines of credits. I think you ended up with like 450. You said 455 or something.
Yeah, because I had to pay off some, but that still equates to 520. So
Yep. And then there was a penalty. There's a hefty penalty. Hefty price to pay, but a small price to pay in the grand scheme of things. Thought of it, and then I want to take a different perspective on this. Thought of it a different way. The house was free. How much did you pay for all in before? $430, and then you just took out over 500 or close to 500. So this house was free. He owns a free house. Yeah. Free house. Is that what listening? Like a free house that still cash flows after he refied. Check this out. Refied, still $2,000 positive cash flow. And then I did some quick calculations in terms of what this cash flow would look like over the course of the 4.5 years or 5 years, and mortgage pay down and appreciation. So Arthur is effectively about $1 million richer.
Yeah, that's crazy when you say it like that, but
4.5 years ago. And this was effectively almost a 45% ROI. That's simple ROI, but it is annualized. So good stuff. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add, Arthur?
No, I think you got it. I think you got it bang on. I think the mortgage pay down was actually even a little bit more than that. It was about 135 actually.
135? I think I used the wrong interest rate.
You probably used current rates, right?
Yeah. Because the principal is about 30,000. The principal pay down is 30,000 per year.
So it was higher. But onward and upward. So you're going to take this and what next?
That's a good question. I'm hoping to get into the. I know you were talking about the luxury suite conversion. So that's my holy grail. That's if I can figure that piece out, that would be fantastic.
So you specifically talking about the legal luxury triplex conversions or legal luxury fourplex conversions, and possibly or hopefully a laneway housing in the back.
That would be fantastic. That would be the home run beyond home run. So that's kind of my that's my go-to now, is to try and secure something like that. Although COVID and stuff like that, it's really not making it too friendly with the material costs and delays, and so I mean, couldn't have picked a worse kind of year for that. But still, I'm setting the dominoes up so that I can knock it down when the opportunity arises. At least preparedness meets opportunity, right? Once that I'm working on the preparedness piece.
That's what luck equals.
It's exactly right. So
luck equals preparedness versus times opportunity. Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
My pleasure.
Hopefully it wasn't. Hopefully it was outside your comfort zone, because that's where personal growth happens, right?
That's right. No. Thanks for asking. Anytime. Like anytime you need to.
Good stuff. So I think in the last conversation we had was talking about possibly onward and upward might mean the next step being able to use this as the feather in your cap to raising joint venture funds, doing bigger projects, doing projects with partners.
Right.
So, good stuff. Thank you so much, Arthur.
No problem.
All right.
Likewise.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right, Ming.
Cool. So on to our main event. So if you've flicked to the next slide, please. So we have our expert panel, and I would say this is beyond just expert panel. We have what I'd consider royalty in the real estate world gracing us with their presence tonight. Hailing from Ottawa, we've got Denise and Stuart MacPherson. They are real estate investment experts in all things, and especially private mortgages is what they're very well known for. They've won a lot of awards, for their work in real estate, through RAIN and other organizations, and are doing all sorts of interesting stuff these days. Everything from, apartment building developments to, continuing to develop their education and education courses around private lending. So we're really happy to have them here tonight. I got a note from John just before the meetup saying that they're the real deal. That's what he called them. So,
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
To have Denise and Stuart with us. And then we also have Niran Kulathungam. I think I pronounced that correctly.
No one.
That's pretty good.
Okay, I'll pat myself on the back. Founding member of Legacy Global, president of the Ascension Principle, and is really very well decorated in terms of awards, and is also really well known for, I'd say, activating people and getting them to actually reach their goals. One thing talking about them, completely different thing to actually to achieve those goals. And so Niran himself is a very successful and very recognized real estate investor. So we're super thrilled to have the three of them join us here tonight. So
all three are actually, so they're all of them are so infamous that they're all recognizable by first names, sort of like Madonna and Cher and Kobe.
That's a good point. You just
Hannibal
to a real estate
Hannibal
investor, and they'll know who you're talking about. You don't need last name introductions. You're absolutely
correct.
correct.
There's a couple other. That's absolutely the case. Couple other funny things. So when we started this meetup 5 years ago, Niran and Denise and Stuart separately were some of our very first speakers. And so we were talking about this early on before everyone else joined, how literally I think there was like 7 or 8 people in the room when Niran came, and he was all pumped up, and he came, and our audience was very, let's just say it was very intimate.
It was a great meeting, Matthew, and I am just so impressed with the work that you guys have done. I remember showing up, and I think there were 7 people there, and there might have been a few more if you include yourself and the staff that you surround, the posse you surrounded yourself with, the entourage.
Yeah, right.
And I remember donuts or something sitting on a table on the side, and I remember the room being really warm, and you had fans going.
It was at a Buddhist temple, if you remember that, right?
That's right. Yes, it was. It was at the temple, and you had a white sheet of paper to write on.
Yeah, that was our infamous.
And that's where it all began.
Yeah.
So I am just so impressed from those young days to now. When I follow you, when I look at what you have done and what you're doing, the two of you have really created what I would say to be one of the, if not the premier real estate educational forum for the GTA.
Well,
so
thank
you guys have just knocked it out of the park.
Well, thank you. That's coming from you. That means a lot. And just to put it in context, so one of the RAIN awards that we were nominated for, it was the Michael Milner Leadership Award. So it's listed there. We were up against Niran, and we were nominated, and we lost to Niran. But I would be. There's no one else I would rather be. I'd rather lose that award to. So thank you for those kind of words.
Thank you.
And similarly, Denise and Stuart, they were in Ottawa. They presented at our meetup virtually via Skype, and we were just reminiscing about this too. We had a small group, probably a little more than 7, maybe there was 12.
Actually, I thought there was 13 plus.
Oh, 13?
You of your staff.
you
Yes,
go.
that's why I was just laughing. I thought, so Niran was first, obviously.
Yeah. And we were having technical difficulties with the speaker, like with the sound system. So
Even the video, we couldn't even see video.
Oh, you couldn't see video. We could see.
We couldn't see video.
Yes. But what I ended up doing is taking my phone and connecting to Skype, and I cupped it so that the sound would sound more full, and so everyone could hear it in this room. The other 12 people or 13 people. So yes, we've come a long way.
It was nice that Denise and Stuart and Tim Hortons was able to present that night.
Yes, absolutely. Good stuff.
I wish we had video of those days. They were humble beginnings for sure.
Humble beginnings. And
But
now,
we are just as impressed also with what you've been able to do with your group, and it's actually wonderful to be able to come back and see the growth, and then plus again following you over the years and just seeing what's happened there. So, and again, you talk about the Michael Millinor Award, and I mean we've actually Niran and I, we shared that same award one year also. How many you won a few years in a row too, did you not, Niran?
I can't remember. I won those, and I won other ones for renovation and multifamily.
Yeah.
But you'll know, right behind my desk, right here, you mentioned it. That's the only award that sits on my desk or behind me, because it's a leadership award, and I am a firm believer that everything rises and falls on leadership. I mean, Arthur, when you were presenting about what you had to do with your property when you bought that was a result of your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That was a result of Matthew's leadership when you spoke. And that was a result of what you did when you got in there, right? Everything rises and falls on leadership. So
Thanks, Niran. Yeah.
if you don't have that, you're not going anywhere. You just got a dream and you're standing there.
Appreciate that. So why don't we get this thing kicked off, Ming?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously, me and Matt are pretty familiar with our panel, but perhaps other people aren't. So I'd love to start with that open interview question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but in the context of real estate. Like, what was that journey that got you started into real estate? Like, how did it attract you? For me, it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. After reading that book, I thought it was the best thing. I actually bought my first house 2 weeks after finished reading that book. But my life before that was a little boring. So I know some of you guys have more interesting stories. So let's start with you guys, Denise and Stuart. Maybe you can tell us a bit about yourselves and how did you get into this whole real estate thing?
One of the things that happened in our life was Denise and I were married to other people before, and we'd each gone through a divorce. And coming out of that divorce, she bought a house, I bought a house. And then 5 years later, we decided that we'd put our two houses together. And Denise looked at me and said, we should really keep my condo and rent it out. And I said, are you nuts? I don't want to get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning about plugged toilets and nasty tenants. So we sold her condo. I regretted it later.
Yeah, we did. But the other thing is too, is when you divorce, your finances take a huge hit, and it did for us, both individually. We met, after we were each divorced and whatnot. So we had to kind of rebuild when we started from, and I can say it from scratch, if anybody's been in that situation. After my divorce, there were some months I had 52 cents to my name, and I was wondering, how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to put food on the table? You go through hard times, but hard times make you stronger. And Stuart has his own stories too. So when we got together, it's like, okay, we need to rebuild a future, and how are we going to do that? And real estate came to mind. And one of the things is we did start with Rich Dad courses when we first started, and we started education before we ever started investing, because we had invested in stocks without any education, getting caught in the hype. Well, guess what? Guess what those high-tech stocks are worth today? I'll give you one stock. Not zero. One stock, well, today's zero. One stock, which was 10,000 for that one stock. Do you know how to make $18.34? Invest $10,000 in stocks. So, and we thought there's no way we're going to invest in anything else without educating ourselves, which is why we started with the education. First thing we did, but I overheard a little word. I heard the word, nobody else did, but I heard the word RSP mortgage and I thought, what the heck is that? And I made it a point to learn what it was all about and whatnot. So our very first real estate transaction was actually an RSP mortgage. I was leaving government because we started investing once I retired from government. So for those of you who are later in life, it's never too late to start. So that was our first transaction, was an RSP mortgage, and we learned how to do this. And then now we started investing January 29th, 2010. So 11 years later is where we are today, but we started at retirement is when we started.
That's an amazing story. I echo your education first approach because I did not take that approach. I am a fairly risk tolerant person, and that has served me both well and poorly in the past. But I went and bought my first property after like literally knowing about real estate investing for 2 weeks, and it was illegal. I got like fined. We had all sorts of problems. I mean, I learned through trial and error, but that's not the best way to do it. I would not advise that to anybody else. Like, I get some education. So that's good for you to do that.
Yeah, education was key. And then we immediately started learning about groups, which is why the next thing we learned about was RAIN, and started, and we joined RAIN and continued. And we're still RAIN members today too, as well as other groups as well. But we keep up that education also.
Yeah, you know, if you've listened to me talk in the past, I'll talk about $10, $100, $1,000 jobs a lot. And you know, $10 jobs, pay somebody else to do it. $100 jobs, okay, like maybe if you have skilled labor, you can cover for a bit, but eventually you want to get to $1,000 jobs, and those are not jobs worth $1,000, but jobs you absolutely cannot outsource or pay somebody else to do. You cannot pay somebody else for you to be educated. Only you can educate yourself. You cannot pay somebody else to network for you. Only you can network yourself and build those relationships. And that's, you know, those are two lessons I wish I had really taught my early investor self. It took me forever to get to that point, like slow learner, I guess. It took me almost 10 years before I was I was getting myself educated, and I was focusing on that, and I was focusing on, you know, networking and building out my network. So, you know, I really echo those lessons. Niran, over to you, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how'd you get mixed up in this whole real estate mess?
I'm not quite certain how I got mixed up in this. It just sort of happened. Well, no, I will. Let me tell you. You know, all my life I have been obsessed with the question, and the question I've been obsessed with is, what does it look like to really, really live a meaningful life? Even as a teenager, I was there. And so every time I encountered either myself or somebody else, I try and figure out what can I do to disrupt what's going on and build something better. So in my early days, I actually have an undergraduate degree in chemistry biology, and I decided that science was the way I was going to make this happen. So I became an analytical chemist, an organic chemist, and worked in that field for a couple of years and realized this was not the fit for me because I really like people and I was stuck in a lab. So I moved from there and I did a certificate in theology and then did my master's in theology at MacPherson University. As a result of that, I ended up pastoring. And so, you know, instead of pastoring a church, what I did is I said, you know, let's do something completely different. Let's go to a place where churches die and let's start one. So me and a buddy of mine, we started a church from 2 people and grew it to about 250 people. Then I left from there and I thought, where else can I be disruptive? And I had a lot of student debt. You know, when you've got an undergraduate degree, a college diploma, plus a master's degree, you have a lot of student debt that kind of follows you around, right? And so I decided that was not going to happen. So I went into building renovation and ended up being the sales and marketing guy for a renovating company, became like the VP of the company, and made enough money in the 1 year to pay off my student debt or to get that under control, saved enough money to buy our first house. And so back in 1999 or 2000, something like that, we bought our primary residence. It was after that I went back in my field, and I ended up being a prof at a college, ended up being landing the associate dean position of the school. And then the dean's position became available, and I ended up landing that one. It was at that time I thought I had arrived. I had a platform. I got to mess with people's minds. I got to create the future. This is what I love doing. And what happened was I was on my way to a meeting, and I rode a motorcycle, Ninja 900. If you watched the original, what's the movie with the fighter pilot movie, Tom Cruise?
Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Top Gun. So the motorcycle he rides in that is exactly my bike, except mine was black. It was red. His is black. Mine was red, blue, and white, and it went like stink.
Yeah, those are fast bikes.
Fast bike. Well, I wasn't going very fast. I was sitting at a red light waiting for the light to turn green. This was 15 years ago. I was waiting for the light to turn green at a red light, and that is all I remember. Lady came up behind me in a minivan, 8:20 in the morning, did not see me, did not see the bike, plowed through me. She hit me so hard, the bike actually bent. I went airborne, opened up her windshield with my head. When she stopped, I got thrown back out. I ended up waking up in a hospital with people telling me things like, "Sir, do you know what date it is?" And I'm going, "Date? What does that word date mean?" And so, make a long story short, like I was in full racing gear. I looked like I belonged on a Ninja, so to speak, right? I looked good, but it was Kevlar body armor. So I was wearing jeans, but my jacket was really heavy duty and a good helmet. What happened was I had a broken leg. They put me in a cast, sent me home that day with head injury protocol. I was on a lot of meds that were high pain meds. And my doctor said, get off those as fast as you can. So I got off those. And what I found when I got off of them is that I could no longer function. I could not, I couldn't do simple things like be in a conversation with people. I couldn't be in rooms with light or noise. I couldn't order pizza. I couldn't make a decision. So as a result of that accident, I ended up having what's called a traumatic brain injury. I had to learn how to process new information, written material. I was very slow at reading, and I had to process new information from a grade 3 level on. So that's where I started. They told me I would never, ever work again. It was in that process where I ran into a book because we had no money saved. And we were the typical family. We were living, paycheck to paycheck. I had a great job, but, I'd save for the future in the future kind of a thing. What took place was I walked into Chapters and I found a book called Real Estate Investing in Canada by Don R. Campbell. Awesome. And the cover on it was actually damaged. So we actually spoke to the manager and got the price reduced. And we bought that book, my wife and I went through the book with my cognitive therapist because I could not read properly. And I ended up coming to an ACRE conference or a conference, right, on real estate. And I remember the first conference, I went into the bathroom and hid there because I couldn't talk to people. And when my wife picked me up from the conference, she said, "How was it?" I said, "I have a goal. 1 year from now, I'm going to return to this conference." It had nothing to do with real estate. My goal was this: 1 year from now, I'm going to be able to stand in the foyer of that convention center and hold a conversation with Don Campbell. That was my goal. I left, and for the next year, I spent the year sitting in coffee shops, making myself be distracted and doing the work. And it was through a whole series of process. A year later, I came back and I joined a network, and that's where I met Matthew and yourself, Ming, and Denise and Stuart and a number of people, right? Sam, I met you in there too. What I was able to do there was, and so initially we bought one property a year after I became a member. I think a year after that, we bought another property. And Arthur, you were speaking about how scary, what I heard when you spoke, Arthur, is the fear that you were reliving when you said, it took all my family's money. But we did something, I can relate to that, because we did something that I would never recommend any of you to do. So do not do this. We refinanced our house to 95% loan to value. So we could pull $70,000 out. And out of that $70,000, we bought 2 investment properties. And that resulted now. And so anyway, I've grown my business. I've gotten better, and I realized that, hey, I can go do this full time. So at the end of the day, what I do is I am still doing the same thing. I'm still messing with people's minds. I'm still being disruptive in my conversations with people, but I coach, I consult. And the main arena that I do this in is in the real estate world. So today I think when I came and spoke, Matthew, 5 years ago, I think I would have had about 5 doors to my name, something like that. And today we're managing about 57 units and growing aggressively. I'm a firm believer. I immigrated to Canada when I was 17 years old. And, I am a firm believer that to live in Canada is to have, I say this often, is to have won the lottery ticket. It is to have really made it. I mean, there's no reason why none of you on this call cannot be great, not just financially, but in the impact that you create. So, how's that?
Yeah. One of the things I really admire about you, Niran, is we've known each other for a little bit. We met at
Yes, we have.
We've had opportunity to sit down and chat. And I only knew about your motorcycle accident more recently. It's never been an excuse, which I think is very admirable, because I think a lot of people would have seen that as a moment in their life to let every problem that happens after that be that reason, right? Like something to blame the bad stuff on. But you've never done that. Like you don't even mention it unless it's part of a context around something.
Yes. Yeah, I've been very careful I've been intentional about that thing. And that's a great observation. I appreciate you making that observation. I've been very careful not to allow the stories that I create to stop me, right? We all have reasons as to why things cannot be. And if anybody should not be managing multiple properties, it should be me. And yet here we are. And that's because of a couple things. One, I did not accept the story. I accepted that was my injury and I needed to deal with it. I didn't avoid it, but I leaned into that fight. Secondly, I surrounded myself with people that were willing to believe in me, even though the evidence was contrary. Right? And we can go down a whole list of other reasons, but those are 2 things that stick out in my mind right now.
Yeah, we often say to our clients, and it's not a trite thing, but investing is tough. Like nothing infuriates me more than real estate investing being called a passive investment, or it is absolutely not a passive investment. It's as passive as lying still while somebody pokes you in the eye with a needle, right? It is very tough and trying at times. And you need something greater than just, I want to make money, to stick with it, because that is not enough, right? And it could be, you've got family, you have a greater purpose in life, and you're supporting that through real estate investing. But there always has to be something deeper for when the times get tough and you're dealing with some pretty heavy stuff that you can get through and get to the other side of whatever challenge it is that's facing you. So
Sure, for sure.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
that's right.
Well, we use this
Matt,
opportunity to switch gears a little bit, and so thanks for that, Denise and Stuart and Niran. Those are wonderful stories. Thank you. They're very inspirational. This is when we switch gears to some of the questions we have queued up for an AMA. Now you know kind of where they're coming from. So Shelby, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I can present some that we received beforehand. So the first one is from Gavin. So if Gavin is here, we also welcome you to unmute and add more context if you're comfortable. But the question is, how can I borrow from my own RRSP for investing in real estate?
Well, the first thing that Gavin needs to understand is that CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, takes a look at registered funds, whether it's RRSPs or TFSAs, as something very special. I like to say that they think that it's their money until you've paid the income tax on it. And so they make a lot of rules about that and how it can be used. You can use your own RRSP for your own personal residence that you live in.
Only.
Under certain circumstances. If you want to use it for an income property, you cannot use your own RRSP. But having said that, Denise and I have found that there are more than $1.5 trillion invested in RRSPs by Canadian people who, for the most part, every February see the advertisements from the bank that say, come in here, make sure you make your RRSP deposit, and then the bank sells them on mutual funds or GICs.
Or stocks, yep.
Things that get a very low return. So there is a whole pile of people out there who are getting crappy returns for their RRSPs. And I mean, that's where we come in.
I love this. It's your turn to talk as he hits me. That's funny. The thing is what we have found too, a lot of people get like less than 1% on their funds. I had somebody who says, I think I'm doing a pretty good rate. This is like maybe 2 weeks ago. I said, have you really checked what it is that you're doing? Like, what is the interest rate you're going? He said, well, not really. I said, you need to know how to read that statement to know exactly what is happening. And when he looked at it, he came back to me and he goes, I'm making 3.3 and that's all I've made in the last 10 years. I go, yeah, I can tell you stories about another investor that thought she was making 14% on her RRSPs, to find out when we sat down and looked at her two statements, one of them was doing 0.66% per year and the other one was doing negative 0.24.
So to circle back, Gavin, you really can't use it for your own personal residence. Pardon me, you can't use it for an income property that you own. However, there is nothing to stop you from learning how to borrow other people's RRSPs the way we have, and lending your own RRSPs to other investors and making a good solid return on it.
And the key there, it must be arm's length. And those are CRA rules that are around that. And that just means that an arm's length as opposed to a non-arm's length. So the arm's length is there's no relationship. So Stuart and I were married, so we can't borrow each other's RSPs. But borrowing somebody else's, then at least they can't be related to you by blood, like mother, father, brother, sister, that type of stuff. Or if it was an adoption, or even if it was a corporation where you're borrowing from your own corporation, that doesn't work either. So it's got to be arm's length to be able to use your RSPs on income properties.
I would also, it's Edward here. I jumped on the video a little late, but I also want to say that the RRSP seems like a great tool, but you're really giving up a lot of opportunity costs. Like, I think maybe if you're a passive investor and you want to throw into the S&P, like, yeah, you're going to see pretty good returns year after year. It's been performing pretty well. But I mean, it seems like everyone on the call here, they're more of an active investor, and money now is better than money later. So putting money into the RRSP, you might save a few dollars in taxes this year. But if you can turn that 30K, or say Arthur's 400K into $750,000, like, that's pretty decent, I would say, returns yearly. But that's an active investor, right? But if you want to be passive and yeah, RRSP is the way to go. But seeing all these young folks on the call, it's RRSP is probably the last thing you really want to do, especially when you're looking to grow. RRSP is a great tool if you're making tons of money and you really want to reduce your back. I was doing that for quite a while, but then I realized I can't touch it. What's the purpose of the money 50 years down the road or 40 years down the road?
I mean, you bring up a good point, Edward. You bring up a good point.
Yeah.
This whole idea of whether to invest in RRSPs is very individual and depends on your personal circumstances.
Yeah.
But
I thought we were on the same topic, saying that you guys think it's better to use RRSP towards other
the one thing that I do want to remind everybody on this call about is tax-free savings accounts. I love those, because the nice thing about that is a registered account, so it gets treated the same as an RRSP as far as how you invest it and how you manage it. But the difference is, although you don't get a tax deduction when you put money in, everything that grows in the tax-free savings account grows tax-free, and when you take it out, you are not subject to a income tax payment on that. And the other nice thing is that if you put $10,000 into your tax-free savings account and it grows to $12,000 or $13,000 and you need the cash, you can draw it out. And then you can actually turn it back into your tax-free savings account in the next calendar year and put all 13,000 back in and grow it some more. So it's actually better than an RRSP. The rules are much better for that. So it's something to consider is learning the rules and making them work to your benefit.
And probably one of the questions that'll come in later, and I can wait till later because there's a lot more questions, is the RSPs that are already out there, not necessarily RSP, the young people about putting RSPs now and being able to use them. We're talking about so many people right now. There are so many RSPs right now out there. Listen, I'm already 66. Do you know how long I've been putting money into RSPs? The thing is, I've lost a lot of money over the years, and there's a lot of people of retirement or about to retire or retirement age that were sold a bill of goods when they were young, and they were saying, you put that money into RSPs and by the time you retire, you're going to have this big nest egg. People were sold a bill of goods, but these people have lost so much money, and now there's a way that they recoup a lot of those losses by investing in mortgages, basically. So
Yeah,
that,
sure.
I'm sure it'll come up as further questions later, because I know that Shelby has a lot more questions here.
I want to get just a tiny bit deeper into that. And what I want to ask you about is arm's length. Now, what also is not arm's length is if I lend to Niran and Niran lends to me. Is that arm's length?
Yes, it is arm's length because you're not related.
Okay.
What it is, it's called swapping, and that's not legal.
That's not legal. So how do we get around that maybe in a trifecta?
Well,
You
again,
want like three people like Matt, Ming, and Sam? Is that what you're suggesting?
the key thing is that it is possible for you to loan to Niran and for Niran to loan to you, but they have to be entirely separate transactions. They should not be done at the same time. They should not be exactly the same amounts. And one should not be contingent on the other with the I'll lend to you if you lend to me, because that makes it a swap.
Okay.
But there's lots of times that we've borrowed money from people and we've loaned money to people, even though it's the same person.
Good.
It's not a swap because it's happening at slightly different times. It's different amounts.
Properties, different amounts. It's just another transaction, period.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So if RSP lending and RSP second mortgages is a topic of interest to people, maybe that's something we can get into deeper with Denise and Stuart, maybe even at a later meetup, bringing those folks back to learn a bit more.
Just so that you know, Matthew, it isn't just second mortgages. We do a lot of firsts.
Yep, a lot of firsts as well. Absolutely. Yeah, and there's lots of other tricks like borrowing, like taking your own RSPs, being able to put into your first mortgage position. Yeah, I know these two are the go-to for anything to do with RSP lending. So Yep. So if you guys are interested, make sure you send us a note, or send Shelby. Don't send me a note. Send Shelby a note so we can keep track. If there's enough interest, and that's something that we can explore more fully in a. We could basically dedicate an entire meetup to that. So cool. Thank you for exposing us to that interesting world of RRSP lending.
And just to say also, Matthew, I know we say RSPs, but it works for all registered funds, be it TFSA, be it LIRAs, being RIFs, it doesn't matter, but we like to it just makes it easier to say RSP, but you mean all registered funds when we say that.
Even the book says RRSP secret, right?
Exactly.
We know. Great, good stuff. Shelby, what else we got?
All right, so a question from Francisca. Again, if you're comfortable in here, you're welcome to unmute. But she's wondering, what does one need to look for in a suitable JV money partner?
Who wants to take that?
Go for it, Niran.
All right.
He's like, oh, I'm ready.
JV, this is what I do. We both do it, both Denise and Stuart and myself. But I do not have a single property that is not joint ventured in some form or fashion today. Okay. So Shelby, can you repeat the question for me? I just want to make sure that I get it clear.
Absolutely. So what does one need to look for in a suitable money JV partner?
And who's the person that asked the question?
Francisca.
Francisca, are you in the room?
I don't know if she is, but I think it's a popular question.
Yes, I just want to get a little bit more context. So what do you look for in a JV partner? This is going to sound tongue-in-cheek, but finding the right JV partner is like, remember, I'm looking through the room here. Remember just a few years ago when you were young and single, and you used to go to a club and you wanted to meet that girl that was or a guy that was surrounded by all his friends. JV partnership is like picking up at a club. That's what it's like. So here's how you work the JV thing. Now there's two different ways of doing joint ventures. One is to show up as an expert in the field, and then you start having a property, you start shopping that property out to your email list and go, listen, I'm raising money for this property, and bringing a joint venture partner that way. I have never done it that way, right? There are other people, I think Denise and Stuart may do that more than I do, so they can probably speak to that. The way I've never gone looking for money. Money has always found me. To this point, I've never gone looking for money, and not last year, but the year before, I placed $5 million of joint venture capital. So I attract capital because when you look for your joint venture partner, it depends on whether Francisca is asking for her as the expert or her as the money partner that's lending the capital, right? So as an expert, here's what I'm looking for in a money partner. More than anything else, the money partner must be somebody I would love to sit down and have a beer with or go out for a coffee with. Because I'm not a big company where people put money into a fund and it's all, they'll get a statement from the accounting department once a year. I'm the guy that shows up to hold your hand. I'm the guy that sits down for dinner with you, knows your family. And the biggest thing that I do in all my joint ventures is that I coach my clients, either to learn how to invest in real estate or in some other field of their life that is out of sync for them. So I'm looking for people that I like hanging out with. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm looking for is that they have the capacity to withstand a storm. So what I mean by this is that when I started investing, my first JV partner, I think was, well, all my partners are great, but I've noticed that partners that have, like, say, $30,000 only to their name are very difficult partners to work with because that is all they have. And that's all right. But you need to be prepared to hold their hand and walk them through that journey. Whereas if I have partners that have, six-figure, seven-figure capital, they understand it as a business. It's numbers, and it's do you have and it's a process game. The second thing I look at is, do they have the capacity to look for to withstand a storm? In other words, how do they respond when something goes wrong? And the best way to do this is when somebody approaches you with capital, I often will say, okay, well, leave it with me. Get back to me in 2 weeks. And I see if they come back to me in 2 weeks, because I'm not hungry for money. They need me more than I need them. Always operate from a position of strength. And, I think Ming, you, yourself, and Matthew, Denise, you will know Russell Westcott.
Yep.
And years ago, Russell came up to me and I was struggling with joint ventures because I had one partner. I didn't know where the next set of capital was going to come from. I didn't know what to do. And he put his arm around me and he goes, Niran, remember, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And I thought, wait a minute. I know more about real estate than most people have forgotten. And so I started shifting my inner game and I started attracting other capital. Right. So two things that I look for is, are they nice people? I know that doesn't sound like, I need to be able to get along with this person. And secondly, do they have the tenacity, the backbone, the capacity to withstand when all of a sudden there's an article that says house prices are dropping, COVID has hit, right? Because I'm in the game of changing people's lives. And if people want to be stuck where they're at, they're a bad partner fit for me, right? The third thing that I would look for is, are they coachable? Because most of my joint venture partnerships all started with them wanting some coaching from me, right? They wanted me to hold their hand, because at the end of the day, one of the things that you need when you invest in real estate is you need, like Arthur, when you talked about what you did, you needed the knowledge which you gained from Volition. You needed confidence, and that confidence is where part of you had to generate that confidence in order to be able to close on a $1.5 million deal that you've never done before. And at the same time, you did something else. You borrowed confidence from Matthew and Ming. And so what I find in the coaching consulting world is often I'm building people's confidence, not because there's a lack of knowledge, but because they don't understand which knowledge to use. So it's an issue of wisdom, and it's an issue of me helping them generate their own confidence, and at the same time borrowing my confidence until they're ready to go on their own. So I hope that's a huge question. Maybe Denise and Stuart can talk about it from the other perspective of a deal first. I always attract capital first. I have people commit to me first, and then I go shopping for the property.
Yeah, before we pass it over, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, because there's one or two things that really jumped out to me, which I want to make sure is clear for our audience. You'll notice that Niran didn't talk about financial qualifications of the individual, or like.
Hey, Ming, something's wrong with your microphone.
Oh, can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. He didn't talk about any of these like financial qualifications of the individual. Like, do they make X number of dollars, or do they have X number of net worth? Because there wasn't mention, though, of somebody having $30,000 to name versus somebody's making more.
Your microphone's still wonky, dude.
Oh, is it? Sorry, guys. I don't know what changed. So
just come closer and speak louder.
Yeah, I'll come closer. So, yeah, basically, there was none of that kind of mention, right, about detailed financial analysis of a JV money partner. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's personality at the end of the day. When somebody only has $30,000 to their name, they're really anxious and uptight about that money because that's all they've got. And you can't proceed as a, you know, in your JV partnership with a partner who's anxious and watching every single move. A JV is like a marriage. Imagine if your husband or wife is tracking every single motion and dollar and movement that you're making. It's suffocating. And you cannot have a successful JV partnership in that same vein. And that's the most important stuff. Like, yes, if they don't have too much money, it's you know, it's always nicer they have more money. But what will kill this relationship is a suffocation of you as the investor. So I just want to call that out. I think that's
Sure.
A very
Thank you, Ming, for that.
interesting thing that you in your points that you raised, that you're looking at when you're looking for a money partner.
And you said a very big key word there is relationships. That's where, for me, the foundation of real estate has been, is relationships.
So allow me to riff off the two of your comments for just a second. The reason why relationship is important to us, to Denise, Stuart, myself, Ming, like, is because we're all relationship people, right? We feel uncomfortable if it's not, if we were fine with just, you know, an institution investing our money, we would all have our money in RRSPs and leave it there. We are relationship people. We are people that want to change and take control of our lives. The conversation around money and the health of money. Now, one of the things I've done is once a partner is, I've crossed the bridge of, hey, I want to date this person, so to speak, right? This is somebody I can hang out with. Now we look under the hood. Now we look at the financial map. So I'm a financial life professional as part of Legacy Company. So I actually said I will not bring on a joint venture partner until they have walked through the process that I have of figuring out what's working for them financially, what's not working for them financially. Because my job is not to make money on their money. That's the result of what I do. My job and my calling, my purpose is to make them be the best version of themselves. And the first thing that I have to do is look at where they're at and look at what is missing for them. What is out of alignment? What are they wanting to really, really accomplish? And when I talk to my JV partners, if they're not crying and getting teary-eyed by our first conversation, I haven't asked the right questions yet, because I need to figure out who they want to become in the process. And the making the money and finding the deal simply becomes the process through which we make money. But it also becomes, making the money becomes the result of the actions we create that changes who they are and their future.
I think one other key thing in there too is being people of integrity. Whoever you are, be people of integrity, because people watch what you do. And that's very key also. People are not just going to throw money at you. They need to know that you are a good person at heart and that you will take care basically of the funds that they entrust with you, and that you're going to look after their interest. And that's important for people.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think, you know, this industry and other investment industries, unfortunately, are rife with shady characters, and there's a lot of people who've been burned, right? And so it's absolutely a very strong point to have integrity and have transparency, right? You're not always going to do everything right. You will make mistakes along the way. You've got to own up when a mistake has happened.
That's it. One of the things that
Lots of questions.
I think Russell Westcott actually made comments on this at one point, is if you are looking for money partners, don't dip your fishing pole in the pond that has one fish, because that's going to make you way too desperate in order to have that person come aboard as your partner. We ended up, I mean, Denise is really good at talking to people, and she talks to lots of people. And one of the rules that we made was, if whoever we talk to, we're going to let them know what we do. We're going to let them know that we're real estate investors, and we're going to let them know that we're willing to work with other people in order to help them come. And I mean, one of the favorite stories we like to tell is about a pastor at our church. And I was doing some volunteer work at the church, and so Jeff and I would talk, and he knew that we were doing real estate investing. And he started to ask questions about what we were doing. And what we discovered was that he and his wife had made an investment with someone through the church, and it was a bad investment. It was one of these shady characters who took people's money and stuck them. So they had lost about $70,000 of their retirement funds. And I mean, that was a big hit, because those of you that know church pastors know they don't earn a lot of money. And so basically what happened is that it took 5 years, 6 years. They just asked us questions, and they finally came to a comfort level that they knew us well enough and realized that whatever happened, we were going to make sure that they got paid back. I love the Kevin O'Leary line. He says, "I treat my investments like sending my soldiers off to battle, and I want all my soldiers to come home and bring friends." And so basically that's what happens when we're looking for partners. We want them to have a comfort level that we're going to take care of their money, and we're going to make sure that no matter what happens, even if we had to go in debt, we're going to make sure that they get paid back and they get back what we promised they'd get. So building the relationship and then following through and making sure that you live up to what you've said.
Good.
So,
Thank you for that.
Denise and Stuart and Niran, I guess I have there's a lot of questions about JVs in the chat. I guess I have one of my own. Is that so? It's based on a lot of trust. Are you guys also equity partners too, where you guys are also contributing, or is this more so, helping them build a business or coaching them how to build business with their money and with their guarantees and line of credits and whatnot? Like how is it usually structured? Because I'm actually quite curious also.
You know what?
Because I know there's many different ways you guys can be equal money partners. You can be, both contributing equity. Some people are guarantees.
Very, very different ways. And we've got a friend out west that he does a 75-25 split on all of his JVs.
Yeah.
Some people do 50-50. You don't have to do 50-50. It all depends on who brings what to the deal. And then there's the whole process to basically identify that, to say who brings what to the deal. Yeah. But even when we first started, there's a few deals that we did that we were the money partner because we wanted to learn. Yeah. And that was a quick way. So for sometimes people just starting, that is a great way to start, is go with somebody that has the experience, understands what's going on, and you learn till you get your feet wet and you understand a little bit more. Combine that with extra training and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you can fly. So there's various ways that you can, do joint ventures. That is for sure. It all depends on the reason. Like some people will joint venture because I'd love to do it, but I literally don't have any time.
Yeah. And
that's what they just want, straight money partner. That's it. That's all they want. And yes, then on a joint venture, then usually there'll be some sort of equity split. You get people that will invest in project, but it's only on a debt, as a debt partner, not an equity partner.
More of a debt side, right? Like you guys are taking
one or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it's straight cash, you can be both in some circumstances, but you can't on RRSPs. You've got to be.
I guess further to that question, because this is something where I find challenges. It's the guarantees and the covenants. How do you end up getting? You both seem to have a huge portfolio. I think Niran said 50 plus properties. I'm not sure about yourselves, but how do you overcome that? It seems like I have my own ways, but I'm kind of wondering what are your solutions so far? Like, are you finding basically money partners, equity partners who are willing to put up their guarantees, or are you guys doing it some way creatively that
I'm going to quote my accountant. It depends.
Yes.
I'm sure it does. Yeah.
It's true. It depends.
I mean, each deal is different, and each deal and the people that are in the deal have to be structured. So it's a matter of understanding all of the various structures and figuring out which one works best for that particular deal. And when I say works best, it involves how it works best for the property, how it works best for the partners, how it works best for you.
One thing
Is
I
that-
like that you used to how you used to structure this, or a framework to think about it, was something you presented at our meetup 5 years ago, and it was the 4
M's.
exactly.
I stole that from Russell Westcott. I mean, one thing that you'll learn is find somebody good and steal their material.
Oh, I'm all about stealing. I tell the team that all the time. But anyway,
Russell used to talk about a joint venture agreement is made up of 4 M's, which is money, mortgage, mastery, and management. So the money is the money for the down payment. The mortgage is who's going to qualify for the mortgage. The mastery is the real estate sense in order to put the deal together. And then management is the ongoing management of the deal for the life of the joint venture. And the key thing is that each of those M's has a value, but that value depends on the particular deal, and it depends on the negotiation, and it depends on how much each of the partners in the JV brings of each of the M's.
Yeah, I like that, and that's the way that I've approached all of my JVs as well. It's a very structured way to think about it. Go ahead, Niran.
Edward, did your question get answered? I feel like
not I'm not sure. So like, yeah. So like with the eventually financiers are going to see you as overexposed to the real estate market after a certain point, especially if you're not a fund of some sort, right?
What's the fear that's driving your question?
Well,
what are you afraid of?
It's not a fear. It's more of a question where how do you keep acquiring after a certain number? Because your guarantee and covenants are not going to mean much unless you're ultra high net worth.
Right. Okay. So let me just lay the framework out a little bit for you, and it may help to take you I just want to loosen that tightness up for you, because what I'm hearing from you is, yeah, but how? There's this tightness. So I just want to loosen that up a little bit. Okay. So as far as guarantees, one, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, Edward, but I don't guarantee any outcomes. I can only say, here's what I'm hoping for, here's what our goal is, but I don't guarantee any outcomes. If you're speaking about guarantees to the bank, is that where you're coming?
Yeah. I'm not talking about your personal guarantees of an outcome. It's more about the bank guaranteeing your.
It's a financing question. Yes.
You guaranteeing the bank the next purchase. Like, let's just say you're making a few $100,000 a month. You could buy a couple $1 million worth of real estate.
Yeah.
It covers themselves. You roll it into a corporation. It covers itself. But then after a while, they're like, you seem overexposed. Okay.
So Edward, let me answer that question this way. When it comes to single family homes, if I have a joint venture partner or person that comes to me and they have, say, $200,000 and we're going to put it into a single family home, we're going to turn that into a duplex and it's going to be in Hamilton. Okay. Then they will qualify on the mortgage. The title will be in their name, not my name. And the reason I don't want it on my name is because I have too many properties under my name right now. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that I feel like I'm overexposed, it's that financing becomes more challenging. And the interest rate goes up higher and higher. So I would rather have them on title, because that keeps the interest rate down, makes financing easier. Now, having said that, I don't have 50 buildings. I have 57 doors, right? So because I have everything from duplexes to 15-unit apartment buildings.
Nice. Yeah.
So in the apartment buildings, it's always going into a numbered company. And now everything is done in a holding company, in a corporation. And in the commercial multifamily world, the banks do not look at you the same way that they would. They don't look at you first, they're looking at the deal first. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, financing takes a different shift there, right? Because everything is, and people get stuck that the moment it goes into a corporation, you're going to be paying at a higher interest rate. Who cares?
No, yeah.
It does not matter. Like, Arthur, you paid a higher interest rate. Great, look at how well you've done. So I don't feel overexposed at all. I feel like I've got
No. I didn't mean you feel overexposed. I meant banks will see you.
Banks
as
will,
a
yes, yeah.
host.
So it's
It's
literally
not
what I do is
right.
it depends on the partner. The partner has to be able to carry that debt on their own shoulders.
Right.
They're on title, they're on the mortgage. On the flip side, if I put it into a corporation, the corporation becomes the asset. And
No,
then
I get
we
yeah, I get
okay.
that. That's the path I'm going down to.
Okay, good.
In corporations, and it carries itself with the
yeah. But let me ask you this, Edward: how many properties do you own right now?
Not enough.
None. Okay. Are you looking at a single family or a multifamily when you start?
They're all multis.
You're thinking multis, as in what does multi mean to you? 3-4 units or over 6 units?
I'd say 3 to 6 units, 3 plus units. I'm only looking down Toronto, but 3 to 6 units.
Okay, so if you're looking at 3 to units and you're starting, I would talk to your lawyer and accountant. So I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. What I'm going to say here is what I would do. It's not meant for you to be legal advice. Okay.
Yeah.
I would not put it into a corporation. I would just go do it in your own name and get a really good personal insurance carrier to back you up. Because the higher the level of complexity at the beginning means the slower you do things. Do not unnecessarily increase the level of complexity at the beginning. Complexity is the enemy of progress. You want to simplify it. There are, as you grow as an investor, you will have to learn different levels of complexity and adapt to that, but don't do that out of the beginning.
Yeah, no, I was more asking just from your experience and how you grew to 50 doors. It's, for myself, I have my reasons I need to do a corporation. It just it makes more sense from a financial point of view. Gives you access to CMHC and all other sorts of higher amortization and whatnot, right? So
the question that all of you should be asking yourself is, why can't I call Ming and Matthew tomorrow morning? Why can't I send them an email saying, I'm ready to buy my next property? Do me. Why can't you do that? Why can't you just say, so figure out what is stopping you from sending that email to say, I'm ready to buy the next property.
Sorry,
and whatever that is.
I think I should have mentioned too. I actually work with Ming, Matt, and Sam. So
I know.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying is that for anybody on this call, the question is, stop talking about it, start doing it, and just make the next step. Like whatever the next step is. If the next step is, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm ready to go, send that email. Figure it out. Like jump and build the plane on the way down. And Ming and Matthew will hold your hands as you fly. It'll be all right.
Sage advice. Correction, don't email me. Don't email me. Email info@volitionprop.com. So just anyway, just a quick chime check, level set. We didn't get through a lot of the AMA that we were kind of planning. So, I mean, if you guys are okay sticking around, I don't know, what does your evenings look like, Niran and Denise and Stuart? All good?
So when I heard I was going to be here, I booked off the rest of the evening. I told my kids I will see you tomorrow morning.
And then we're gonna go have a late night dinner at Zeke's again near the airport.
Oh, those were the days.
But anyway, if you guys, Denise and Stuart.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay, so if you guys are okay, we could. What?
I can't stay on that long though.
Okay, that's fine.
I have to put my daughter to bed, and she needs to be bathed before that.
Okay. I'll
love it.
Lead, that's fine. Thanks, Ming. I'll kind of just leave the rest of the conversation. There's a couple other things. I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity for people to ask. So those are some of the questions that came in via email, posted on our meetup group, email, asked us directly. So I just wanted to make sure that those a couple of those questions were out there. It did take the bulk of the time. There are others that are trickling in. So if Shelby, if you're okay kind of sticking around and helping us kind of navigate all the questions and stuff, do you mind serving up or any ones that have come up in the chat box? I just want to make sure that we're kind of getting through at least some stuff that people are asking.
Absolutely. So one right off the hop, Zane asked, what kind of rates could we expect if we loaned out an RRSP?
what we have seen very typical on a first mortgage has been anywhere from 6 to 8%. I've seen 10, but that was very unusual. It usually isn't. And usually on a second, you can go, I've seen 8. And I've seen up to 8 to 10 is about average that I've seen on there. Now, a lot of people, I can tell you right now, say, I won't do it until 12. And I said, well, the project, you have to make sure the project can pay for it. That's the thing. Some people will do 12. I tell people, if you're being told that you need to pay 14, 15, 16 and more % for that, there is so much money out there. Go get it elsewhere. Honestly, guys, there's no reason you should pay that much. The other thing that we see with a lot of other people doing is charging you lender fees on stuff. The thing is, you know what? Lender fees is built in with mortgage brokers. They do this for a living. They put food on the table with this and whatnot. So when you're doing a private mortgage with your funds or borrowing somebody else's funds, they're not mortgage brokers. So I don't see why people should be paying big fees for some of this. I really don't understand it. So this is what we've been able to do, that people have just been very happy with this because it's steady. It is such a, and it's a true rate of return. And this is where people don't realize, if you're borrowing money at 8%, as a borrower, you pay for all the fees. So the lender literally, if he's borrowing, let's say $100,000, at the end of the year, it is $8,000 extra he's got. It's not $8,000 minus fees. You cover all of the fees, all of the legal fees from the lender and the borrower side, and all the administrative fees from the trustee that is used, that holds the fund. So it is a true rate of return that you get.
There's an addendum question. Who's the trustee? Who do you use?
We use exclusively Olympia Trust. There is Canadian Western Trust, B2B. Community Trust out of Toronto is another one that has been popular. The thing is when we started with the doing the RSP mortgages, we were using TD Waterhouse. Absolutely loved dealing with them, but then they got out of the arm's length business. So till those trickled out, since 2013, we've been using Olympia Trust. And for us, we found them, and is after doing research around all of them that were out there, is we found them the easiest, the less complicated, the less red tape, and the best customer service. And that's what we found from dealing with Olympia Trust. And that's why we've used them. We have tried using funds from other places, Community. They all have different rules. Community will do only monthly payments. Well, when we buy, it's because when we buy, for, let's say for a first mortgage, we borrow for that for a first mortgage, we buy here and we know we're going to bring the value here. So the idea is always to refinance at the end, because you're not going to pay a high rate for a long time on a first mortgage. So the thing is, you have to be in a position to refinance. So you can't be going to the banks and trying to refinance in less than a year or a year. Banks don't like that. So that's why it makes sense to go with a first mortgage. So the fact that you bring in the value, you've made the money to be able to pay back that first mortgage and all of the interest. And that's what works really great.
As a balloon payment, right?
A balloon payment,
Yes.
that's what we do.
That's the key component. So
That's right.
I want to call that out. So when they borrow using second mortgage funds, they don't pay that monthly interest on that second mortgage to the lender, to the private lender. They keep it until the very end. They accumulate all the interest and pay it out as one balloon payment at the end. That's a very powerful.
Yeah, because as a borrower, you want to have all of the cash possible while you're working on your project. Yep. So if you're depending on having to pay something, all the time, it's less money for you to work with. But also you have to remember, when it's registered funds, it's paid back into your registered fund account, and it just sits there. You can't do anything with it anyway.
Because it's a small amount.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yes. So everyone I know who does second mortgage lending uses Olympia Trust. So thank you for that. And just so we're clear for everyone who doesn't know what a trustee is, basically you've got to move your money to someone, to an institution, a trustee who is then authorized to lend it out as per your direction to a borrower who's
as
borrowing
arm's length mortgages
for that arm's length mortgage.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like You remember that I said that CRA thinks that your RRSP is their money. So it has to be with a trustee that's authorized by Canada Revenue Agency.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is there are a number of trustees that are all authorized to have RRSP and TFSA, but not all trustees will do mortgages, arm's length mortgages on Canadian property. Mm-hmm. If you go to the bank, most all charter Schedule A banks are trustees, but none of them do mortgages.
Yeah.
Not arm's length mortgages.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you. So I'm sorry if it wasn't explicitly clear. Feel free to stick around, ask more questions. These guys are gracious enough to stick around for a bit longer. If you got to go, you got to go. Then thanks for joining. What else we got, Shelby?
Okay, so Michael asked, I understand you can't hold real estate in your RRSPs, but if you have to foreclose because your borrower stops paying you, doesn't that mean you now own the real estate in your RRSP? How do you handle such a situation?
Well, Canada Revenue Agency actually has an instruction on this. And basically what you are expected to do is divest that particular property as quickly as possible. Now, they don't have a calendar that says you've got 6 weeks or you've got 8 weeks, but they do expect you to be divesting of it in a fairly reasonable fashion. So basically what happens is, if you were to foreclose on a mortgage and you end up getting title into your RRSP, CRA would expect you to, as soon as the title is cleared by the courts, to hire a realtor and list that property for sale, or start negotiating a private sale in order to sell that as quickly as possible and move the title out of your RRSP. But there's absolutely nothing that prevents you from doing a vendor take back and actually holding the mortgage to that property in your RRSP after it's been sold.
Interesting. Nice little trick.
Yep.
Cool. Did that sufficiently answer the question? I think so. All right, next. Let's see if we can rapid fire these out.
Linda asks, I have 10 properties right now, thinking about a commercial property, a threeplex. Do either of the speakers have experience with commercial, and would you recommend it versus residential?
Yes, yes, yes.
my quick comment is always, I like to have more than one rent coming under one roof.
Now, the only thing that I'll comment on that, if we're talking a triplex residential, that's actually not a commercial property, because anything under 6 is still considered residential. So if you're having problems with the banks and getting financing because they're putting the ceiling on you because you own too many single family homes, buying a triplex is not going to get you out from underneath that problem. You're going to end up dealing with a B lender or a credit union or something like that. But as Denise said, having multiple residences under one roof is a good idea. So a 6-plex or something bigger, great idea.
Absolutely. And multifamily is what I do, or one of my main tranches in my business. And what I've found with multifamily is that your upswing on the on a multifamily building that's over 6 units is much bigger, but your headaches and problems are much bigger as well. And you have to have it's not the same as, you don't, Don Campbell said this to me once years ago. He said, don't try to invest in multifamily. You can try to invest in a house. Don't try to invest in a multifamily. Like, it is a business unto itself. So there are one building I bought a multifamily. This was years ago, 6 years ago. Bought a building in Hamilton, a 12-unit apartment building. It was my first technical multifamily, the commercial. And when I bought it, people told me, don't touch this because the tenant profile there is challenging. Now, when Hamilton people tell you that the tenant profile is challenging in a Hamilton property, it's challenging, right? So I did some unconventional methods for tenant turnover. I showed up at the property at nighttime with my German Shepherd dog, who's a service dog, a man tracking and personal protection dog. And I was dressed in military gear. And I showed up and walked around the property, and people thought that there was dog security been hired. And people would be like, "Can I pet your dog, mister?" I'm like, "No, it's a working dog. You can't touch the dog." And then they'll like, "Here, puppy," and I can trigger my dog in just hand signals. So they'll do that, and my dog will go, "Arr." And I go, she hasn't bitten anybody for a week. You can try and pet her if you want. And within about 3 months, people moved out, which, vandalism goes up. When vandalism goes up on a multifamily property, it is not the end of the world. It's actually a good thing. It's people trying to get back at the landlord. Then after that, they stop paying rent in the middle of the night. They move out. It is the cheapest eviction process there is. Now, that building we bought for $825,000 6 years ago. Today, it got appraised with 2 years ago with CMHC for 1.7 mil. Today, it'll fetch easily just under 3 million, right? But at the same time, getting that building there took a lot of headaches. Like, I remember standing on like if you miss something on a roof in a single family house, it's going to cost you $5,000, maybe $8,000 for a roof. On a multifamily, I had quotes all the way from 40,000 to 120,000. Right? So the problems are bigger, but if you solve the bigger problem, you make a lot more bigger money. So everything is just you can't, like, you can manage a single family home. Multifamily, you had better be very professional in your management. So yes, so if you have 10 houses, I think it's time that you waded into multifamily. Just go do it. Connect with me if you want, if you need to pick my brain, but just go do it.
No, good stuff. That's one of the things that Don Campbell talks about. One of the things that Russell Westcott talks about. They're like, you know what, whatever your goal or your objective is financially, add a zero to the end of it. So, right, the amount of capital you want to start attracting, add a zero to the end of it, and something magical happens. It manifests, and and similarly in the multifamily space, this is what he's talking about. You can up that game by just adding another zero, and just instead of getting a 3 unit, get a 30 unit, right? But yeah, absolutely, it is completely a business at that point, and you got to be prepared for it. So yes, Niran, you're going to add something.
No, just adding the zero to it is so crucial. Right? Because all of us play this game and we think that we are, and we're too cautious in our execution. I'm not saying you shouldn't be cautious in your analysis, but don't be cautious in your execution. 10x, like last year, I worked with Grant Cardone. Some of you may know Grant Cardone. So I was on Grant Cardone's global license team. As a result of that, I got to hang out with this guy, and if you watched Undercover Billionaire or been in Grant Circle, you'll know he says, take whatever it is, 10x it, 10x it, 10x it. I remember being at GrowthCon, and he came to us and he said, your goal for this weekend is to sell $250,000 worth of licensing. And the license was sold at $25,000 per person. So it's not a cheap ticket item, right? And that weekend we sold, I think, around 1.2 million. Because our team just said, we're going to 10x this. Let's show Grant who's boss, right? But if you do that, when I 10x stuff, you don't always reach your 10x goal. But man, you don't just reach your goal. You get somewhere between 1 and 10.
It's a multiplier effect for sure. Good stuff. Thank you. Shelby, you got another one for us?
Pretty much gets all of the ones in the chat. So if anyone wants to unmute, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, okay. We'll just open it up. Let's start a conversation. Who has The kahunas.
I had one.
Okay, go. Arthur has kahunas.
Yeah.
Hello, Arthur.
Yeah, no, I had one that was kind of in line with what we were talking about before, because, and I just wanted to kind of an open discussion, and it was about the corporations. It seems like what I heard there was, it's, and I agree, especially with Niran when he was talking about complexity at the beginning. So and I'm going through it right now because my sixplex in particular is in a corporation. So doing the refinance, wow, it's amazing that I got through it. It was very, very complicated. And because there's all kinds of, loopholes that the bank's got to go through. There's the laundering stuff, like, if it's a corporation and you're here and the money goes through you personally, but all this other stuff. But I was also told that doing a corporation is a good thing. So I just wanted to pose the question, should a corporation be basically only entertained if it is a commercial property? Is that what I heard? Or is there a situation where you're starting in some form of residential space where it still makes sense to have a corporation? Or is it just too complex in that scenario? So
Yeah, I'm going to borrow words from Stuart. Well, that depends, right? But in general, I'm at when I started off, I put everything in my name, single family homes.
Okay.
Now I do everything in corporations.
Whether it's residential or commercial?
Or commercial, even residential single family is going into a corporation.
Okay.
But if I'm buying a single family home and my partner is putting it in his personal name, then my joint venture with him personally is through another corporation I have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm always, and the reason for that, and if you're in a 6-unit building, if you're buying a multiplex, I would recommend you always put in a corporation, because that's 6 people that can sue you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So those scenarios, like a corporation protects you from a tax perspective. You can you have more ways of saving money and paying less tax. The other thing that corporation does is it protects you from litigation. Mm-hmm. Where if something goes wrong, they come after the corporation, and it's hard to pierce the corporate veil, so to speak. Right?
Right.
So what I meant to say was that if you are starting off and you're just looking at buying your first investment property, put it in your own name and get on with it. Now, you need to talk to your lawyer and your accountant. If you're a high net worth individual and you have a lot of assets to protect, corporation might be the way to go. But I find too many investors, when they're starting off, get pulled into this world of complexity with corporation, and it stops them from actually buying the house.
See, for us, sorry, Niran.
No, go ahead.
I would say for us, at the time, like I said, when we first started real estate education, we were taking some rich dad courses, and the first thing they told us is, hey, get a corporation. So we're learning. So we did. So all of our properties have been in corporations right from day one. As a matter of fact, we had a corporation, I think something like 8 or 9 months before we even closed on our very first property, because we were educating ourselves and we weren't even investing at the time. We were actually learning before we started implementing. So we had this corporation for quite a while. Now, would we do it again? Absolutely not. But at the time, that's what we were told. That's what we did. And today, because we did what do they call it? A 3-tier corporation. Right. And where you have a holding company that is owned by like a property managed company that has a real estate company. Today, they don't do that because it creates problems. And we have faced some of those problems today. At the time, those were the structures that worked well. Today, no. As a matter of fact, next month, we have a meeting with our accountant to re-look at our structure to see what we're going to do. But everything we buy is in corporations, and we have several corporations because we limit the liability per corporation.
Good points. Good points. There's 2 things I want to add, if it's okay. So number 1, I'll just address, I'll add on to the last thing you just said in terms of corporations and the structure. Yeah. If you speak to the George Dubies or whatever, or Peter Cassini's,
Right.
It's not about corporations anymore. It's about family trusts, right? And that's probably what you're getting to. So I have the exact same structure as you. I've got like 5 corporations and my parent co, and I have my real co and my real co and my opco and opco or whatever. And they're like, oh, that's pre-Trudeau. When Trudeau came in, family trusts are the new thing. So now they're going to take all that and roll that up into our family trusts, right? So yes, there's always tax strategy du jour, and not that you don't not that that's unimportant, but I wouldn't let that. And I know you, Arthur, so I know that that's not the case. That's not what's holding you back. But just for everyone else's benefit, I wouldn't let should I buy it? Should it be a corp? Should it not be a corp? Be the deciding factor, right? The deciding factor should actually be other things. It should be around wealth planning, estate planning, passing assets to the next generation. Though efficient tax planning, yes, it's definitely a part of it. But a big part of it that a lot of people don't think about is this one. It's why are you opening a corporation in the first place? One of the reasons that it could be effective is if I'm a self-employed individual and I do contract work, let's say, and I'm making all that money in my corporation. I take some out for my own personal use and to cover my living costs, but I can leave the rest of retained earnings in there. I can get that taxed at 12.5% instead of pulling it all out. So now I've got a bundle of cash or a stockpile of cash, of capital sitting there, and now that's my seed capital. So instead of taking that out personally to try to invest, that's when it could very well make sense, open up another corporation, do a shareholder loan to that new corporation, and invest using that corporation, right? So those are the types of things to think about. It shouldn't be around, oh, should I put my property in corporations? You're approaching the problem backward, right? So if you unravel it and you start thinking about you think about it in a more strategic fashion, you start understanding that it's beyond just, should I put the property in a corporation or not? It's really, what is my personal situation and how does my personal situation dictate how I should approach this problem?
The other thing that you have to keep in mind is what is the reason behind the acquisition of that property? Because if you're buying for a long-term hold, Canada Revenue Agency treats the income from that property different than if you're buying for a fix and flip or if you're buying for a rent to own. So you never mix what is referred to by CRA as inventory properties, which is something that when you buy it, you're planning to sell it. Never mix that in the same corporation as a long-term buy and hold, because that really makes things more difficult. You'll end up paying more taxes on that.
Good point. So yeah, absolutely. All of your, whether it's rent owns or any short-term type of deal, wholesaling, that all happens in a corporation. Tax that active small business, active business income tax rates. Definitely good stuff. The other thing I was going to mention, back to Niran's point, was talking about holding the corporation. I had all my properties are held in corporations too, but mine is this hybrid model where legal ownership stays with me, so that way I can still get residential financing. Right. Beneficial ownership lays with the corporation. So it's my corporation that makes the rental income, that files the tax returns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Legally, I'm on title. Legally, I'm on mortgage. Matthew Lee, me personally, I've transferred beneficial ownership at the time of acquisition over to my corporation, just like trust fund babies and what have you. So that's sort of that hybrid model that we use to get around the fact.
You've been hanging around George Doobie.
George Doobie, Dave Gonzalez. Like all those guys. Yeah. So these are so anyway, just to answer your question, Arthur, around, should I put, residential in, does residential real estate make sense in corporations? Yes, it can as well.
So did you find it was hard to refinance those? Because I've got kind of a similar situation where the beneficial ownership will be in the corporation, but as far as on title and stuff, I'm on it personally. And I found when I tried to refinance, because there was that Weird
they're looking for the income. So the problem is when they're looking at you. I'm not saying it's a holy grail.
No. I'm just.
It opens up other cans of worms. And what you're describing as an example is they're looking now. You're carrying the liability, but you have none of the income to offset that liability.
Exactly.
So that's where it can get tricky. I'm not saying it solves all the problems. It can solve some problems though. I don't have. You do have to go to a mortgage broker to make sure that they can, do some of their financial wizardry to try to get some of the income that's earned within the corporation attributed and offsetting the debt servicing that you're holding personally. So yes, it's a tricky situation. I totally get it.
Yeah, it was.
Cool. Shelby, what else you got for us? Well, were there questions from email and on the meetup group and as well as in the chat box?
Can you guys hear me? Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure. Hello, Sam. This is Sam, not from Volition. Sam.
No, I'm not. Sorry about the video. I'm just outside. It's a little dark out here. But I came late to the Zoom, and I don't know, I guess a lot of people are, but I'm really impressed. It sounds like you guys are, you really know your stuff. Did you guys mention cash flow? Is that something that we talked about that I missed at the beginning, or is that not really something that that you guys talk about, or how do you guys approach that? Just simply cash flow.
Yeah, what aspect of cash flow are you talking about, Sam?
Oh, I guess well, I've been investing in real estate for a while now. I don't know where the years went, but it's over 20 now.
Oh,
but
wow.
It's more like you buy the property, and then, well, there's a cash flow, and if that $300 a month at the beginning turns into $3,000 a month after a few years, but or I think I did hear something about the refi aspect of it too. That's like a big lump sum cash sort of bonus you can get. But yeah, so I don't know, at this stage, just thinking about you guys and just really the 45 minutes that I've been on, that I've been lucky enough to hear you guys speak, is it more you guys are more like talking about joint ventures and how that would work? So the cash flows would be coming out of the 100,000 that someone puts in? Is that?
I think what it comes down to, Sam, is that the answer to your question is it depends on what you're trying to do with your real estate. I saw a really good model developed once where over the course of 10 years, you buy one property a year. At the end of 10 years, you take a look at the worst 5 of those properties and sell them using the proceeds from the sale of those 5 to pay off the mortgages on the other 5. So you now have 5 mortgage-free properties that are going to give you a nice monthly cash flow that you can retire on. If that's your plan, if that's your strategy, then that is great. If you're fairly early in your real estate investing, you might not need $3,000 a month cash flow from a particular property, but what you want to do is do some acquisition. At that point, as long as the property is going to support it, you do a refinance in order to draw out equity, use the equity in order to buy other properties. So the bottom line is the use of your cash flow depends a lot on what it is you're trying to achieve.
But one of the big things too is always buy with cash flow. Don't ever buy a negative producing property, because that will be the hardest thing for you to carry whenever anything happens, where all of a sudden the roof goes, you need to put in a new roof. Well, you're already negative, so you're going to be even further negative in doing this. So your cash flow, even though let's say maybe 200, 300 a month, whatever it is, allows you to go past some of those rough periods that you all go through at some point or another. Because when you think if you're already starting off negative cash flow, how many properties can you buy that are negative cash flowing? Like how many can you put in your portfolio, right? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you'd be banking on appreciation. You'd be taking, but that's quite the gamble. Yeah, you'd have the card stacked not against you, but you'd be putting yourself against the wall if you're buying negative cash flow and hoping for appreciation.
Yeah, as I once heard somebody say, that's not investing, that's speculating.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a bit of what the stock market is like. But yeah, that's I'm just gonna sit back and listen.
Sam,
I hope I didn't interrupt the group, but just
No,
really
you didn't,
impressed.
but I do
No,
have a question for you.
Sure.
You said you've been investing, I think you said 10 or 20 years, right? Can't remember.
Yeah.
So what's got you asking that question now?
I think like the real estate game, it hasn't changed. It's just grown and developed and matured. And just listening to you specifically, and also the other speakers, you guys have a deep knowledge. So, when I started, just on the back of a napkin, I just talked to the agent, and I just talked about what are the utilities, what is the mortgage payment, what is the rent, and I think that was it. And I just said, okay, let's just do that. That's perfect, because I got a couple hundred extra bucks, and I was thinking all along that, the principal would be reduced and things would get better over time, and it has. But now we're talking more complex things like JV and even tapping into your RRSP money, which is a great idea. And so all these different aspects.
Okay.
Opening. Yeah.
Understood, Sam. Thank you for the clarification. So when it comes to cash flow, the cash flow game does not change. Just like you did it on the napkin.
Yeah.
We are still looking at what is the cost, the soft cost on the property. So what's insurance, what's maintenance, what's management, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're left with net gross income. And out of that net gross income, you have to service your debt, so whatever the mortgage is on it.
Yeah.
Once all those things come off, if there is not a positive cash flow, we don't buy the property. So in a joint venture scenario, it's the exact same thing. If somebody brought, I think you used the number 100,000. We brought 100,000 to the table and we put that into a property. That property still needs to cash flow. And then what happens in the joint venture scenario is that the extra cash flow that's built up, you can then, depending on your you can use that to pay down the principal of the mortgage, depending on your strategy. Or it can be given out to the investors as a dividend payment of some kind. Right. And when RSPs are being used, again, there is an interest that you're paying on the RSP. That becomes a debt against the property that has to be serviced. So again, at the end of the day, income minus all expenses has to equal a positive number. And like Denise said, we do not buy properties unless they're positive cash flow. Now, having said that, I do buy multifamilies that are negative cash flow for a short period of time. Like right now, I've got 2 buildings in Waterloo that I'm working through. And it is, sorry, I think my kid's printing something and the printer just went off. So and we're in negative cash flow, but we're also showing 40% vacancy rate because I'm in the middle of renovating the properties. We're getting tenants out, lots of activities, but that's a short-term plan.
Right.
And just to
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it just looks like maybe I'll give you guys a buzz or send an email and sit down and talk, because it looks like more of a buffet of opportunities as opposed to simply finding a triplex and putting money into it.
Yeah, it is. The best way to connect with me is Instagram.
I'm sorry, I don't use Instagram.
You don't okay, so you know what? In the chat, I'm going to throw in my email and my phone number. Is that okay with you, Matthew?
Sam.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you can just grab it from there.
Oh, perfect.
So,
thanks.
Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly sketch something. So Sam, you're like, Niran's absolutely right. The fundamentals, like the nuts and bolts and the meats and potatoes of real estate have not changed. Real estate still works in the same way that you described it. What we're doing here and what we're talking about here is increasing our level of sophistication and how we approach real estate.
Right.
So in understanding how real estate works and the mechanisms through which you can build wealth through real estate, we can take the same asset that you're talking about, the same asset that Niran's talking about, these buildings or these properties that you stick tenants in and you get rents and you pay expenses and hopefully you get some positive cash flow at the end. But we think about it a bit differently. The actual properties aren't much different, but let me give you an example. So one example, this is, I like to call this the multiplier effect. And so what this is let's say that you buy one building and then, let's just say for argument's sake, it's cash flow neutral, especially over the long term. A lot of the money gets recycled back into the property. The point of cash flow in the early years is not to try to live off of the extra $200 or $500. It's to ensure that you hold the property for the long term. That is the biggest indicator of success, is being able to hold the property over the long term. So the fact that you have held real estate for 20 years, I already know that you've knocked it out of the park, right? But let me take that concept a bit further. Over the at roughly a 5.5% appreciation rate, I built enough equity in this property by appreciation and through mortgage pay down that I can refinance this property and go buy another one. So I effectively turn one property into two.
Right.
So this is taking real estate to the next level. The actual asset and the building blocks are no different, but thinking about it and the strategies around it can be different, right? And then again, so this can happen over the course of about 4 years. At a 5.5% interest growth rate, and so on and so forth. You can grow. Then you reach a certain period. You don't have to keep on growing. What you do is you have to take stock of where you are now, where you want to go, and build a plan to get there. And part of that plan is understanding that real estate is not. You don't want real estate to be your life. You want real estate to fund your life. So some people, maybe if you love real estate, you just want to keep on growing. Okay, great. But for most people, they want the benefit from real estate. In which case, maybe if let's just say I got 4 houses and I wait long enough, right? I wait. Now I'm in the hold phase. So let's say I hold them long enough that something magical happens. I reach a point where I am, across my entire portfolio, all 4 of these houses, I am at 50% loan to value, meaning that the value of the house, the value of the mortgage, all the mortgages is half of the value of all the houses. And this is what Stuart was talking about. What you do, you sell off half and pay off the mortgages of the other half. And now I've got this now is true cash flow. So this is, whatever, if I've got $5,000 coming in and I pay maybe $1,000 of expenses, the rest of it is cash flow times 2. So this is how to accelerate. So you've held one house over the course of 20 years, which is fantastic. The alternative approach, a little more aggressive, takes a little more work, but you could be over the course of 4 years, you grow your portfolio, you wait, and then you downsize. This can all happen in about 12 years, let's say, right? If done properly and following this kind of what I dubbed the multiplier effect. That is just one way to look at real estate. Same asset, it cash flows the same way. The mechanisms through which you build real estate wealth through real estate is all the same as it was 20 years ago when you acquired it, but it's how we approach it, the strategies we're using to accelerate that growth. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's a very deep knowledge, and it's so interesting and it's so fascinating because it's such a multifaceted sort of world, this real estate. And so over 20 years, I may have, just sat back a bit, but I've whenever I dive into it, it's so rich and the opportunities are there. So so I'm kind of like reignited, and I'm glad I came on the call. And you guys are Toronto based, by the way, Volition?
Volition is Toronto based. Niran operates in the Golden Horseshoe. Hamilton KWC. Yes.
Okay.
Denise and Stuart are experts in the Ottawa market.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. Good diversity here.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right.
So hopefully
That's great.
hopefully, well, I'm glad to be part of the group that got you reignited. So, we'll feel the energy. So good stuff. Thanks for the question,
No.
Sam. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Cool. Is Shelby still here? Oh, there you are. I thought you took off for the night.
Still here.
Enough for this. What else do we got?
Maybe we want to wrap up and kind of share next steps. Might be a good time.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Ed. Did you have something?
Just have a quick question. I have a house in Ottawa. How's the market over there in Canada right now?
Hot.
Hot, right? Time to sell?
Yeah, again, it'll depend on your property, the condition of it, where it is and what's going on. But right now, there's a lot of people who used to invest in Toronto that can't afford to invest there anymore. And they're looking for a place to take their money. And they've all discovered that if they drive down the 401 coming east, they can drop their money as they go along. So Kingston is hot. Ottawa is very hot. It's interesting that 2 years ago, the average days on market for a property here in Ottawa was around 40 days. It's now down to less than a week, and that's average. We're seeing properties that they are being advertised that they're holding offers in order to try to get a bidding war going. And people are coming in with bully offers and buying them before the offers are even being presented. So Ottawa is a pretty hot market, depending on what you've got and what you want to do. If you were interested in selling your place in Canada and it's a good place, you should look at doing it, because right now it's a hot place.
Ottawa's the new Toronto. Good stuff.
Ottawa is actually the #1 city right now in Ontario, according to the RAIN Research. And if you know anything about the RAIN Research, is a very strong research company that analyzes all of the data and everything and kind of predicts where things are happening. So, I mean, remember Hamilton from a few years ago? I think, what is it, about 7 years ago when they were talking about Hamilton, and it was like, people go, Hamilton, a steel town, why would you invest there? But, they do so much analysis to know where, where the jobs are going, where the people are moving to, just full analysis. And they've been able to help investors over the years.
Yeah.
Just to finish off my comments, Edward. Yes, you could sell your place in Canada, but you might also want to think of keeping it.
The investor's dilemma. Actually, John's always been brave enough to turn on his video. So, and I think if I saw correctly, John had a couple of questions posted, I don't know, in the meetup or something. So you know what? Because John's such a huge advocate of Volition in our meetup, I'm going to let John just unmute himself and ask the question that I know is the top of his mind.
Well, I asked a few questions, so I don't remember which one, but I guess land value.
Yeah, land. It was around land and building costs, if I recall correctly.
Land values and building costs, and
in Ottawa. So I think, just to preface this, I think John has some family and some land in Ottawa, and now he's thinking about developing the land, and he just has some questions with Denise and Stuart.
So it'll depend on what part of the city you're in. We've just bought some land with our business partner in Orleans, which is out in the east end of Ottawa. And when we were taking a look at comparables, vacant land in a standard suburban lot was going anywhere from $250 to $350 for a standard lot. Now, in our particular case, we're closing hopefully on Friday.
Not hopefully, it's closing.
On a property that the house was built around 1958. So Orleans was way out in the country at that point. And this particular lot is big enough that we're going to be able to subdivide it and sever it into 3 separate lots. And the nice thing is that right now, one of those severed lots has nothing on it. So we're going to be able to start building on that and then turn the cash in that over in order to work on the other 2 lots. There are a lot of people who are buying properties closer to the core. in order to tear down and rebuild. We've actually got a couple of those properties that we own right now, and we're just managing as buy and holds, because Ottawa has a new official plan that should be put into place this fall, and it's going to encourage densification. And so one of the properties that we thought we'd be moving on and doing demolition this year and rebuilding, we've decided to hold off for a year, because the new official plan will allow us to have a much higher and better use. Instead of doing a couple of side-by-side semi-detached, we're actually going to be able to build an apartment building on that lot under the new official plan.
Wow.
Possibly up to 9 floors.
Woo!
Ooh.
You guys
So
can be,
it's Ottawa's a very interesting place these days. And so depending on what you've got and what you want to do with it, it's worthwhile doing some research, and you can either sell or you can develop it yourself.
That's super interesting. In Toronto, we suffer from NIMBYism here. And like, everyone acknowledges that we have a problem, but none of the single family homeowners want it happening in near them.
Well, we just went through a process there, Matthew, on another lot that we bought in June 2019 to build a semi-detached with secondary dwelling units in it. It actually went to appeal because we had to get a zoning and a minor variance, because we do want to be able to change the zoning from single family to, to build that duplex or the side-by-side semi-detached. And the neighbor who already has the zoning objected to us getting that zoning and put in an appeal, and it only got resolved just a month ago, like in March.
I feel your pain. I got sent to, we have a new process here. So if you go to COA and it gets appealed, we have a new process. It doesn't go into OMB. It goes to TLAB, the Toronto Local Appeal Body. It's supposed to be faster.
Ours is LPAT. Yours is
LPAT. Yeah.
LPAT.
Your tribunal. Yeah. Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. So this house here that I have, basically, I ran into that issue. I wasn't building a multi-family. I'm building a single family home, and I needed a couple of variances, and I got held right the hell up. So just
not in my backyard.
Yeah,
that's what the NIMBYs are. Yeah,
it's actually interesting that we have been following what's going on in the Ottawa Committee of Adjustment. And in Ottawa, what they've done is their Committee of Adjustment is actually broken up into 3 panels. And the members of the panel are not elected officials. So they actually get citizens that are brought on board and appointed to these panels. So because we know that we're going to have to go for minor variance on one of our properties, we've been watching these things in order to get a sense as to what's going on. And it's absolutely amazing. There was one that I sat on the other day because it dealt with a property that was a neighbor to a property that we own. And I wanted to see how things went. The Committee of Adjustment ran for 7 hours.
On this one,
not on the one property, but on all of the applications. The one meeting ran for 7 hours because so many of the applications had the lineup of neighbors that all wanted to stand there and complain about the fact that the building was going to be too close to the lot line, that the rainwater was going to wash off this property and into theirs, that the sewer system wouldn't be able to handle the extra toilets in the brand new construction. So it's amazing what goes on. But yeah, NIMBYism is alive and well in Ottawa as well.
Okay. So this is not a Toronto phenomenon.
Nope.
But what we have here, like as you probably know, we have 50, 70 story skyscrapers and then a bunch of single family homes. Like we have this missing middle, this yellow belt that we're completely. Anyway, so don't get me started. That's I could rant on this for a very long time. Anyway, John, did you want to get into anything else with Denise and Stuart? Building costs, or I think did you have any other questions?
Okay, so the official plan for the city of Ottawa, you said that, is that kicked in the fall?
So what's happened is that
you can go online to download it too, John.
The official plan has been put forward to City Council, to the Planning Committee, I'm sorry. And it will be going to City Council this fall. They haven't actually scheduled it on the agenda, but they're thinking that it would be August or September. And once City Council passes it, which they're expecting, then it has to go to Queen's Park for approval. So it won't be put into effect until next year.
Oh.
But the one advantage that we heard from one of the city planners was once city council approves it, you can actually start making applications that line up with what's going to be in the official plan, and they will likely be predisposed to approving what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
So after all this time of waiting for and winning the appeal finally, I'm happy to say that as of, was it this morning or yesterday morning? This morning, we finally got our demo permit. We can demo the house, except the landfills are not open yet. So we got to wait till May 15th for the landfills to be open.
Go dump it on your neighbor's lawn.
Yeah, that's what I'd love to do.
Awesome. Well, we are massively over time. We're supposed to be running this from 7 to 9. We did not. So I don't know who to blame for this. Probably me.
Oh, it's all Niran's fault.
It's all Niran's fault. Let's just blame it on Niran.
Sure, blame it on me. I got big.
No, it was anyway, it was been a pleasure to catch up with you guys. I haven't seen you guys in forever, so it was really, really nice to see that you're all doing so well. Thank you for sharing your time, your experience, and your wisdom with us. And for those who want to reach out to our esteemed guests, I think Niran's already dropped his details into the chat box. If Denise and Stuart want to do the same, feel free. I think it's okay. Feel free to reach out to them, and I'm sure I know both. I know all three of these people. They're fantastic people. We all kind of came up through the ranks through RAIN together. So we're all real estate investment advisors together. We all got nominated for similar awards. I lost, they won. So, anyway, but they're great people. Feel free to catch up, connect with them.
Sounds good. Yeah, Denise is just typing our
there you go.
Our email and our her cell phone number into the chat. And the other thing is she put in our Facebook page, which is Denise and Stuart. And so you can go on there, and that's also a way to connect with us.
Yeah, because most of you, well, not most of you, some of you, like you would have known us as DMAC Properties, Matthew. And the thing is, we've been suggested, listen, everybody knows you as Denise and Stuart, so change your page to Denise and Stuart. It's just what we do. And yeah.
Denise and Stuart, just like Sonny and Cher. There we go.
Well, there you go.
Hey, Matt, you're a winner in our books too.
Oh, Will, how you doing? I didn't even know you were here.
Yeah. So don't sell yourself short, you know.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it. Do you have any questions for these guys?
No, I learned a lot. I don't know if you are aware, but I used to live in Ottawa for a few years as well. Love the place. Wouldn't mind going back to my roots there a little bit and checking out what's new. I haven't been there in a long time.
Come on back.
So yeah. Will is the most humble guy I know. Like he has tons of real estate experience, but he never shows it, and he never boasts about it, never flaunts it, and he's always here and always willing to learn. So don't be fooled by the very pleasant facade. There's a lot happening behind under the surface.
I gotta take Matt out for beers now,
Are we allowed to? I got my COVID shot. Does that mean I'm allowed to go out for beer now?
Yeah.
Speaking of COVID shots, didn't they just announce that if you're vaccinated now, you don't have to wear your mask outside?
Is that in the States? I don't know.
I just saw that today. I thought it came out of Toronto.
You don't have to wear your mask outside now.
It's an opinion.
I don't know. I just saw something today, but
yeah, I think it's somebody's opinion.
Matthew.
Yes.
I just want to take the opportunity, first of all, thank you for having me here. Really grateful and just tickled pink to be among such greatness in this room. I noticed something. I'm always watching the number of people, and at one point there were about 74 people, I think. And
76.
this late, 76, there you go. And this late in the game, we've still got 34 people hanging out here.
Oh, don't be fooled. Those are people who have just left their computer on and video off. So.
Got it. Okay. All right. So
anyway, sorry, please continue.
what I'm saying is that, you know, I'm grateful to be here. If there's any way that I can contribute to you or to anybody in this group, just reach out to me, right? I run pretty busy, but I will make time. The one thing, if I could leave you with one thing, is that don't let your excuses and your stories stop you. You have a window and you have the capacity that you need to actually shift the gain for yourself. Real estate is really not about getting another door. It's not about even making money. It's about who you are, who you become. And most importantly, it's about the wake that you create behind you. It's about the impact that you are capable of making as a result of the freedom you kind of loosen up in your life as a result of the finances and as a result of who you become. So, do whatever is necessary to get yourself moving. So thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. Denise and Stuart, do you guys have any final parting words of wisdom?
Well, again, you know, a big thank you. I mean, it's so nice to connect again. Every once in a while, Niran and I still talk, but it's just nice to be able to see each other face to face and be able to connect with you again, Matthew. And I guess Ming's already gone, but it's always nice to be able to have a group like this. And, you know, just again, it's been part of our life is to be able to help investors. That's what we've done from day one, and that's what we continue to do. And hopefully we've been able to, you know, partake some of our knowledge that is helping somebody tonight. That was the whole goal. And, you know, we just thank you for this opportunity, Matthew.
Absolutely. And something that crossed my mind a couple of times through the evening, just based on some of the conversations and even what Niran was just saying, quit wasting time hoping for a better yesterday. Take action, fix up your tomorrow.
Awesome. Good stuff. I think that's part of the reason that the four of us get along so well. We haven't connected in a long time, but it's, you know, just like old times. And I think it's largely because we all are driven by very similar philosophies. It's relationships, and it's not transactional, and it's with a genuine willingness and genuine willingness to help and make a difference. Those are the principles and the foundation upon which I founded Volition. And you know, thankfully we've had the opportunity to also help. You know, I love to. You know, I'm loving the fact that Arthur had an opportunity to talk today and talk about his case study, because when I think back, I still remember very, very vividly. Arthur and I sat down at a coffee shop, and I still remember him telling me, it was before a meetup, and it was, I still very vividly remember him telling me what his beliefs was. And to this day, I still remember what that belief is. Yeah. And I'm not going to share it. It's not for me to share, but I know what that is. And that's what drives me in wanting to help other investors achieve their goals. And it's not about, like you said, it's not about another door. It's not about the almighty dollar. It's about making a difference and changing lives.
It's not a race.
It's not a race. You know, it's not a competition.
No.
You know, you know, it's hard to be an investor if you're an island. You're not an island, and you do need a good community around you. So thank you for being part of our community.
Actually, on that note, if I could just squeak in a couple words there, just on that note, that's exactly what drew me to your group, Matt. To be honest, it was your actual genuine nature. You know, you keep saying it's kind of a people community, and you have a genuine drive to help people, and that comes through in everything that you do. Like it's very clear that that's real. And that's the type of person that you want to deal with. And that's exactly why I ended up becoming involved with you as opposed to a couple of other people in the GTA. It was exactly that. And then when we had that conversation about, like, you know, the beliefs and such and so forth, it really crystallized that idea. And I thought, win, lose or draw, I gotta take shots. And if the best way to do that is to surround yourself with good people, and like Ming says, your network is your net worth, and that's what I invested in this group. because for that exact reason. So yeah. So thank you, actually, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those words.
Yeah.
Good stuff. We're exactly 10 o'clock. We're exactly 1 hour over time. So
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Shelby.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shelby, for.
See you later, guys. Have a great night.
Yeah,
Good seeing
thanks all the panel
Thank
members
you.
tonight. I learned a lot from you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Will.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night.
Night, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, look at all the people dropping off. That means they were here. But all these other people.
We're gonna find out.
So it's always funny to see who are the last stragglers, eh?
Night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night, guys. Thanks
Good
for all your
night.
help.
This actually was better than most. There are ones where still there's 20 people that just they're stragglers, and literally we just know that those people.
Justin, you the man.
I had
What's
to
going on,
jump
buddy?
back on video. It was just like eating and doing other stuff. But always listening. So
It's
Good night,
always
guys.
hard though when we do networking events and people don't have their camera. So why would you come and network if you're not going to show your face?
I'm on camera 99% of the time.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you personally. I'm just saying like when you're in a group, right?
Most definitely.
No, for sure. I've gotten used to just speaking into a black sea of black windows and just I hate it, actually. I thrive when I speak and I present. I thrive off of the audience, and
That's right.
and like for me, it's because I see their reaction, and if they're interested, that gives me enough. That gives me more fuel to want to keep on going, and I don't get that here. It's just I don't know if this is landing for people. I don't know if they're tuning out. I don't even know if they're there. I could be talking to myself. Yeah, so it's Zoom has been challenging. I'm very much waiting to get back to in-person meetups again.
You know, it's funny because
Sorry, I was just going to say, I would probably start every time you send out a Zoom invite, say, please have your cameras on. Please have your cameras on, like constantly.
Okay.
And then call people out.
Actually, that's actually what I do. Sometimes I'll just like pick on a name. Sometimes I know them, sometimes I don't. And yeah, I'll just like pick out a name. I'm like, oh, Ella or Ela or iPhone. Hey, iPhone, do you want to say something?
Matt's iPad.
Matt's iPad. Do you want to say something? So yeah, no, it's I'm very much tired of Zoom.
Yes.
That's why I made a poster the other day about 8 tips to have a better Zoom experience. One of them was make sure that you put your first and last name on your name right there, because sometimes it's like you got some weird stuff that happens there, and then people don't know how to address them because it's not their name, right? One of them was to have audio and video on. You're online, for crying out loud, you know? And I understand some, was that Justin?
Sometimes you don't want the audio, which Matt likes to do and call people out. I always find that funny.
When I say audio is that you can unmute yourself and whatever, right? So, but especially the video, that's most people have the audio available. It's just the video, and it's very hard to talk to people when, like you said, you're talking to a black box.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess the reality is a lot of people aren't really comfortable or familiar with presenting to a large group, right? So they kind of don't think of that. And I guess probably they're doing something else. But who knows?
Yeah, or you could just mess with people like this.
Niran's the man.
I was just about to say, did you open up another, because you were black for a second, and then, yeah.
No, that's what I looked like when I had hair.
You know, it's so funny because I just remember, I mean, the RAIN meetings where Matt and, you know, us,
We all hung out.
We just hung out after the meeting, right? And enough that, even that for your birthday, Matt, I thought pop-up on your birthday was one of the pictures that we had at RAIN.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I thought, oh, that was neat. You know, it was
Yeah, those were
awesome.
good times. Those were good times.
Yeah,
good times.
I used to make sure that I had you know, a picture at the end that I used to post, right? Every single meeting and everything.
You were the one who was good about that.
Yeah, but the thing is with this laptop, I can't do a screen print.
No? Here, I'll do one right now. There.
Yeah, but you don't have the whole screen, right? There's only a few now, but this is what I'm missing, because although it tells me what to do for screen print, but it won't take a screen print.
Are you using a Mac or a Windows?
PC.
It's a PC.
Not a PC, but
Okay.
Not
I'm using a Mac. I know how to do a screenshot using a Mac. So I just took one. So I'll send it to you.
because the thing is, I mean, I can do the the control and whatever print. I don't even know where it is on.
I don't know if it's controls, print screen, or Windows.
Yeah, no, it's Windows print screen is what it does, but it won't take a screen print. The other one I had no problem. And whenever I do a meeting, I tell everybody, like I'd make sure the chat wasn't there, and I'd say, okay, everybody. And I would say, just smile. And I would take a picture and everybody would literally just stop for a second and smile. And it was a fun picture to take, but I can't do it with this computer. So.
Technical difficulties.
Snipping tool, you can just use that to.
You know how long it takes to take a snipping tool? By the time you're like like this trying to smile, by the time I figure out the button and then it opens a window, then you got to, you know, get the box around and then you got to save it. Like, whoa, takes too long. Whereas the other one is like click and you would get a screen print, right?
Yeah, no, I'm surprised it's not working for you, but here, let's see if I can, everyone smile.
Everyone smile. I should see if I should.
I don't think I was smiling.
I should see if I can take one. You're right about. Oh, let me get rid of the chat though.
I just did a screenshot, so we'll see how that ends up.
Oh, let's see where it happens here. So I'm going to look up there. Smile, everybody. So hopefully I took it. Oh, took something. There we go.
Good stuff.
That's really the strikers.
All right, I'm signing off now. Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Close off the meeting.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.